Chapter 1545. Mo. Xie left Summer World and stood in the villa, looking at a circle of people staring at him with wide eyes. In his eyes, there was only one person, Tian Chanzi. He seemed to have realized something and anxiously asked Tang Zheng, "Is there any progress on my matter?" After Tian Chanzi agreed, Tang Zheng cut the Gordian knot and simply called Mo Xie out to clarify the matter of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in front of everyone. "Yes, he promised you." Tang Zheng pointed at Tian Chanzi and said. Mo Xie was overjoyed and almost jumped up in excitement, saying, "That's great." A pair of eyes stared straight at the heaven monk, blazing with passion, like a pervert staring at a great beauty hungrily. Tian Chanzi felt a bit uncomfortable under his gaze and said, "Don't look at me like that. I just want you to give up. There is no Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in my body." Mo Xie smiled faintly and said, "This isn't something that can be explained with just a few words. It needs to be verified before we can know." Heaven Monk urged impatiently, "Then hurry up and verify it so that you can give up on this thought, and I can also be free. Wouldn't it have been easier if you had done this earlier?" Mo Xie muttered. Tian Chanzi glared and said, "If you say one more word, I won't let you verify it." Under the eaves, the dignified Mo Xie could only lower his head and resentfully said, "I won't say any more. I won't say any more." Mo Xie had already been worn down by Tian Chanzi and refused to agree. His patience and confidence were about to be exhausted. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was Mo Xie's only hope. If he didn't revive the Yellow Emperor, then he wouldn't be able to stir up any waves, let alone recreate yesterday's glory. He had already seen that Tang Zheng's rise was too fast, and even Ji Wuxiang had suddenly risen. Even Qi Yu had died at their hands. He simply wasn't enough. It was precisely because he was clear of this that he didn't dare to act rashly when he saw Tang Zheng again, nor did he dare to use his identity. Just now, he had only glanced at Tang Zheng, and he had already seen the clues. Tang Zheng's cultivation had probably increased again. He couldn't wait to revive the Yellow Emperor. Otherwise, if Tang Zheng was strong enough, then the revived Yellow Emperor might not have a place in this world. The others looked at the two of them curiously. They had only heard of the Yellow Emperor's name and had almost never seen him in person. Only a few people knew that the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor possessed Tian Chanzi's body back then. Of course, Tang Zheng wasn't too worried. He was already strong enough, and the resurrection of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul might not be too strong. After all, it was just a remnant soul, and it couldn't possibly have the full strength of the Yellow Emperor. It was precisely because of this that he dared to agree to Mo Xie's request without fear. Mo Xie walked step by step towards Tian Chanzi. Tian Chanzi was calm and composed as he stood there calmly. When Mo Xie stopped and faced him face to face, he felt a little uncomfortable. "Is it necessary to get so close?" Tian Chanzi asked unhappily. Mo Xie nodded seriously. "Yes, because I want to see you clearly." "Humph." Tian Chanzi snorted heavily and didn't say anything else. Tang Zheng silently circulated his energy. He wasn't just here to watch the show. The two of them were so close to each other, and Tian Chanzi's cultivation wasn't as high as Mo Xie's. So, if Mo Xie tried to do something to Tian Chanzi, he would have to stop him in time. Therefore, he wasn't relaxed at all. "Then I'll start," Mo Xie said as he raised his hands and clasped Tian Chanzi's shoulders. Tian Chanzi suddenly trembled, and his expression changed slightly, but he didn't overreact. Tang Zheng clenched his fists and then loosened them. A mysterious energy surged out, filling the entire villa. Everyone subconsciously opened their eyes wide, and each one of them was like a curious baby, staring at the scene without blinking. Tian Chanzi felt a wave of energy enter his body from his shoulders, like an earthworm swimming through his meridians, constantly probing. He didn't feel any pain, but rather a strange feeling. After all, it was the first time in his life that he had let someone else's energy enter his body so freely. He wasn't worried about the danger, and he believed that Tang Zheng would be fully prepared. If Mo Xie made any movements, it wouldn't be able to escape Tang Zhang's fiery eyes of truth. He looked at Mo Xie with ridicule, as if to say, "Don't waste your energy. There's no Yellow Emperor's remnant soul." Mo Xie acted as if he didn't see it and continued his tireless exploration. From the heart, he followed the meridians to the Zifu and saw Tian Chanzi's yuanying. However, his yuanying had his eyes closed, like a sleeping baby, and wasn't as lively and active as Tang Zheng's yuanying. The heart and Zifu had been explored, and the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was nowhere to be found. Mo Xie couldn't help but feel gloomy. Tian Chanzi saw this and deliberately ridiculed. "What? You still don't believe my words? You won't give up until you see the Yellow River, and won't cry until you see the coffin." Mo Xie clenched his teeth, and his expression changed a few times. "I haven't finished exploring. It's too early to make a conclusion." Tian Chanzi curled his lips and said disapprovingly, "You've already finished exploring." "What do you mean you haven't finished exploring?" Mo Xie's gaze moved up and locked on a Tian Chanzi's head. "And here." Tian Chanzi's entire body tensed up, and he said loudly, "What are you doing?" "This is my head, the place I know the most. Even if the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul is here, it can't be hidden here." Tian Chanzi obviously didn't want Mo Xie to explore his brain. After all, the brain was a person's most secret place and also their most vulnerable place. If he had evil intentions, a single thought could make Tian Chanzi suffer, or even kill him. In addition, there were too many secrets in a brain, and no one wanted their secrets to be exposed. "If I don't explore, how would I know it's not here?" Mo Xie asked back. "Didn't you want me to give up? If there's nothing in your brain, then I'll completely give up. From now on, I won't bother you anymore." Tang Zheng naturally knew the risks of this, but he didn't say anything to stop him. Tian Chanzi would weigh the pros and cons himself. Sure enough, after Tian Chanzi weighed the pros and cons, he said, "Then I'll make you completely give up. Go ahead and explore. Don't worry, this won't harm you." Mo Xie comforted him, and a mysterious power drilled into Tian Chanzi's brain. Sure enough, he didn't feel any discomfort. This power wandered around his brain, touching every area, but Mo Xie knew the limits and didn't explore Tian Chanzi's secrets. The brain area wasn't big, but its structure was complex, and it was a good place to hide. But it wasn't easy to hide it from the owner. Tian Chanzi believed that Mo Xie's actions were superfluous because he firmly believed in his understanding of himself. His brain was almost completely explored, and Tian Chanzi already had a playful look on his face. He couldn't help but ridicule him. Suddenly, boom, a surge of power burst out from the depths of his brain. There was a mistake in the previous chapter. After Huang Xiang was possessed by the inner demons, he died in battle. I wrote it again, and now I'm saying that Huang Xiang is dead and won't appear. To read the latest error-free novel, please visit Chapter 1546. The strength of this power was beyond anyone's imagination. Tian Chanzi was suddenly startled. His expression became very interesting as his eyes widened in disbelief. This was because he couldn't be more familiar with this power. It had left a deep impression on him, and he would never forget it even if he died. His teeth chattered as if they were trembling. He said in a trembling voice, "The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor." The others had already noticed Tian Chanzi's abnormality, but the power was still bound in his brain. For a moment, no one noticed it, so after hearing these words, they were shocked. They understood that the problem they were most worried about had appeared. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul really did exist in his body, and it was in the most important part of his brain. Everyone's expression changed at the same time. The brain was a person's most secret place. The fact that the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul could hide in it and escape Tian Chanzi's detection was already heaven-defying. It was obvious how powerful the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was. If a remnant soul was already so powerful, it was hard to imagine what kind of scene it would be if the Yellow Emperor really came back to life. Everyone was aware of this point, so they all looked at Tang Zheng at the same time. Tang Zheng had already calmed down. On the surface, he looked calm and composed, but there was a slight ripple in his heart. However, he didn't make any excessive moves. He had already determined that the Yellow Emperor was indeed powerful, but he was still a remnant soul. Even if he came back to life, he wouldn't be able to reach the peak state he had in the past. If it was in the past, Tang Zheng would be hesitant. However, after exchanging blows with Hao Tianwang, his heart had become much stronger. He no longer had a strong fear of the so-called strong. So what if the Yellow Emperor came back to life? Not to mention whether he was a friend or a foe. Even if the Yellow Emperor really wanted to deal with him, he still had a way to deal with it. On the other hand, if the Heaven Monk continued to hide this hidden danger, what if something happened to him in the future? That would be the scene that Tang Zheng did not want to see the most. Tian Chanzi had regained his composure. He knew that he still had a chance to fight back. Although the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was in his brain, he still had a way to deal with it. At worst, both sides would suffer heavy losses and perish together. That would not be a threat to Tang Zheng. He subconsciously looked at Tang Zheng, wanting to ask him for a countermeasure. When their eyes met, Tang Zheng immediately understood what Tian Chanzi was thinking. He firmly shook his head, and his eyes were calm. He was trying to persuade Tian Chanzi not to act rashly and do something stupid. Tian Chanzi felt a chill in his heart, and a warm feeling arose spontaneously. Tang Zheng's firm attitude gave him confidence and hope. He took a deep breath, calmly looked at Mo Xie, and asked, "You're really lucky. You actually found it." Mo Xie's mood could not be described with the word ecstatic. He could not hide the joy on his face. When he heard Tian Chanzi's words, he subconsciously raised his head, and their blazing eyes met. Mo Xie blurted out, "Because it's the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. I know it won't disappear so easily." Tian Chanzi snorted. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had once greatly increased his cultivation. It could be considered an opportunity. He asked in a deep voice, "Then what are you going to do?" "Of course I'm going to take out the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, and then help him revive," Mo Xie said without hesitation. Hiss. Although everyone had already guessed this result, when Mo Xie personally confirmed it, some people could not help but gasp. There would be one more expert in this world. "Then take it out. I don't want to have another person in my head." Tian Chanzi pretended to be calm and at ease. In fact, it was impossible to say that he was not worried at all. This was a case of pulling one hair and affecting the whole body. Any small mistake could cause great harm to him. Mo Xie was surprised by Tian Chanzi's attitude. He thought that he would deliberately make things difficult for him. He did not expect that he would agree so easily. He stared blankly at Tian Chanzi. For a moment, he did not reply. Tian Chanzi raised his eyebrows and said unhappily, "What? You don't plan on taking it out? Then I'll change my mind." No. You misunderstood," Mo Xie hurriedly denied. How could he not want to take it out? However, he hemmed and hawed, as if he had something he could not say. "You're a man. What are you being so wishy-washy about? If you have something to say, then say it," Tian Chanzi urged in a rough voice. He was once the #1 general under the Yellow Emperor. Even though he was yelled at by Tian Chanzi, he did not lose his temper. Although they were once enemies, Mo Xie could not help but sigh at Tian Chanzi's magnanimity and bravery. His face turned cold, and he said seriously, "This matter is not something that I can do alone. I need the help of others." As he spoke, his gaze shifted to Tang Zheng. His attitude was extremely humble and respectful. Facing Tang Zheng, he did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. In ancient times, many strong people paid attention to the principle that those who reached the top were first. They would not use their status just because they had lived for many years. Mo Xie was one of them. Therefore, he admired and respected Tang Zheng. He said sincerely, "Tang Zheng, I want to ask you for help. I don't know if you will agree." "Ask me?" Tang Zheng was shocked. He pointed at his nose. He did not think that Mo Xie would ask him for help. Mo Xie nodded and said, "I originally did not think that the remnant soul would be in his brain. If it was anywhere else, I could safely take it out by myself. But it is in his brain. In order to avoid harming him, I can only ask you for help. Your cultivation is higher than mine, so you will be able to control this process better. Mo Xie spoke bluntly, making Tang Zheng have a good impression of him. He looked at Tian Chanzi and nodded heavily. Fine, I promise you. Tian Chanzi smiled and said, with you, little brat, participating, I will be more assured. Then I will leave my 100 pounds to you. Don't mess it up. If you turn me into a fool, I will beat you up. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said, I won't turn you into a fool. Eating my food, using my things, and having me take care of you. That would be a waste. Ha, ha. The two of them looked at each other and burst out laughing at the same time, full of lofty sentiments. Mo Xie looked at the two deeply. He could not help but recall the scene when he was with the emperor. Was it not the same? For a moment, he had a feeling that Tang Zheng's achievements in the future would not be lower than the emperor's. In fact, although Tang Zheng's cultivation was high and his progress was very fast, he never thought that his achievements would be comparable to the emperor's. After all, the emperor was an unattainable peak in Mo Xie's heart. Basically, no one could reach it. Even you could not reach it. Mo Xie once thought that there was no one in the world who could compare to the emperor. But at this moment, Mo Xie looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. It was as if he saw the emperor when he was young. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1547. Tian Chanzi stood quietly in the middle of the room. Everyone else retreated to avoid disturbing the three of them. Tang Zheng and Mo Xie stood on either side of Tian Chanzi, one on the left and one on the right. They extended 2 fingers and tapped on Tian Chanzi's temples. This time, they were even more direct. They skipped over the other parts of the body and directly acted on the brain. At this point, Tian Chanzi's expression was a little nervous. He took a deep breath and tried his best to calm down. He didn't have any abnormal reactions to avoid being laughed at by Mo Xie. Tang Zheng had already communicated with Mo Xie, so he was very clear about the specific implementation process. The power of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was too great, and it was very likely that it would unconsciously counterattack any kind of power. Previously, Mo Xie had only used a special ability to resonate with the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, but hadn't actually touched him. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had already begun to counterattack. Fortunately, Tian Chanzi's own strength was strong enough. If it was a normal person, their head would have been shattered by the counterattack. The two of them divided the work. One of them was responsible for using his power to resist the counterattack of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, while the other was responsible for guiding the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul out. If they worked together like this, they would be able to avoid harming the Heaven Monk. Tang Zheng wasn't proficient in this, but after listening to Mo Xie's plan, he couldn't find any loopholes, so he did as he was told. The power of the two entered Tian Chanzi's brain at the same time. Tian Chanzi controlled his own power and didn't counterattack. The two powers arrived at the depths of his brain, where the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was hiding. Tang Zheng was no stranger to the structure of the brain. After all, there was a dragon mark in his glabella. Moreover, there was a fire seed in the depths of his brain. The fire seed was ignited from this fire seed. Now, it was the heavenly fire. If other people entered his brain, they would be very surprised to find that the things in his brain were very different from those of normal people. Of course, he would never allow anyone to enter his mind. There were too many secrets hidden within. That power seemed to be equivalent to Tang Zheng's eyes. He could clearly see the scene in his brain. A fog-like thing was hidden in the deepest corner, covered by darkness. If it wasn't for Mo Xie's special power that resonated with this remnant soul, it wouldn't have been so easy to discover. No wonder Tian Chanzi couldn't find any clues after so long. Tang Zheng and Mo Xie looked at each other and nodded slightly. This was the signal to begin. Tang Zheng controlled his power and turned it into thousands of threads. Just like the blood threads created by the Bloodthirst Scepter, they quickly wrapped around the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. Before the two parties even made contact, the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had already reacted. Boom! A surge of power surged out, like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, wanting to sweep away all the power in the surroundings. This surge of power was obviously stronger than the previous resonance. If it was allowed to spread, Tian Chanzi's brain would definitely be affected. How could Tang Zheng just let it happen? He already had a countermeasure. He immediately circulated his power, and the thousands of threads of power immediately intertwined together, forming a thick eggshell that blocked the surging impact. Boom, 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 boom. Wave after wave of power failed to break through this eggshell-like barrier. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. He couldn't figure out how powerful the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was, so he could only use all his strength. In fact, he didn't have to do this. He was already at the 6th stage of the Mahayana realm. Since ancient times, it was already considered a shocking realm. He used all his strength to defend against the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul's counterattack, which was more than enough. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul seemed to be very surprised that its counterattack had failed. It hurriedly retreated as if it was running away. However, Tang Zheng knew that it was definitely not running away. After all, this was the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. How could it run away when facing difficulties? If it was really that kind of person, it wouldn't have been able to achieve such great achievements. It was definitely preparing a stronger counterattack. Mo Xie realized that Tang Zheng's power had already enveloped the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, and he couldn't penetrate this barrier to see what was going on inside. He couldn't help but remind him in a low voice, "Be careful. Don't be careless." Tang Zheng didn't say a word and concentrated. Mo Xie collected his thoughts and focused on his work. He and the power were like a wheel, carrying the egg and moving out of the brain. It moved very slowly, afraid that it would alarm the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. Boom! A violent impact caused the barrier to tremble. Mo Xie immediately felt it. His nerves couldn't help but tense up, and he subconsciously stopped the movement of the power. Seeing this, Tang Zheng hurriedly urged him, "Don't stop. I'm here. Do what you need to do." Mo Xie took a deep breath and suppressed the waves in his heart. He urged the power to move again. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul moved out bit by bit. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had already realized that it was being guided out. It didn't know what was going on, but it judged it as a threat. Since it was a threat, it had to be eliminated with lightning speed. Thus, the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul's counterattack immediately went up a level. It seemed to be using all of its power, crazily attacking the barrier. Boom, boom, boom. It was like a clap of thunder, exploding in Tian Chanzi's head. Tian Chanzi immediately frowned. He couldn't help but hug his head and pretend to be in pain. Fang Shishir turned pale with fright. She was worried about her master's safety. However, the others couldn't help. They could only place their hopes on Tang Zheng and Mo Xie. It was as if their hearts were in the air. Tang Zheng gradually understood the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. It was true that it was strong, but it wasn't to the point where Tang Zheng couldn't control it. Thus, he calmed down and continued to strengthen the barrier. No matter how much the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul attacked, it was useless. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul is indeed extraordinary. Even a mere remnant soul can burst forth with such great power. What was the Yellow Emperor's cultivation level when he was alive? I still don't know. He was actually absent-minded. His thoughts were drifting off to who knows where. On the other hand, Mo Xie had been very careful, as if he was facing a great enemy. If he knew Tang Zheng's current situation, he would probably vomit blood. Big brother, how can you be absent-minded at this critical moment? Yuan Ying can cultivate a doppelganger in the future, and the doppelganger has its own ability to move. Does that mean that he will also have a soul? Should I give him a part of me? Or should I give him another soul? His thoughts drifted further and further away, as if they were about to float to the heavens beyond the heavens. I'll be out soon. Mo Xie's words finally pulled his thoughts back to the real world. He glanced at Mo Xie, whose forehead was covered in sweat, and felt ashamed in his heart. While others were facing a great enemy, he actually made a small mistake. Sinful. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had already reached his temple and was only a thin line away from the outside world. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul's counterattack was getting more and more intense, but it was still ineffective. "Come out!" Mo Xie let out a low roar, and Tian Shanxi's temple erupted with a ball of light. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul finally saw the light of day again. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1548. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul burst out with a ball of light that was exceptionally dazzling, instantly attracting everyone's attention. However, if one looked closely, they would find that this ball of light was mostly blocked by a thin barrier. Although the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had seen the light of day again, it was still enveloped by Tang Zheng's power. If Tang Zheng were to suddenly attack at this moment, the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul would definitely not be able to resist for long. Mo Xie was very clear on this point, so his expression became very serious. He looked at Tang Zheng with apprehension, deeply afraid that he would suddenly attack and completely fail. After all, both sides were once enemies. No one could guarantee that they would not attack at the last moment. Mo Xie could not help but feel a little regretful. Previously, he only wanted to extract the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, but he did not think that after extracting it, the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul would be in danger. He was secretly remorseful and nervous to the extreme. The sweat on his head flowed down like rain, drenching his clothes. Tang Zheng glanced at Mo Xie. How could he not guess his thoughts? He smiled brightly and said, "Mo Xie, this is the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul that you've been dreaming of. Take it." As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Zheng withdrew his power. Pa pa pa. Cracks appeared on the eggshell-like barrier, and it shattered. A blazing light immediately burst out, as if there was another sun in the room. It was especially dazzling. Mo Xie's heart, which had been suspended in midair, immediately returned to his chest. He did not even have time to take a deep breath, as he hurriedly took out a small porcelain bottle and covered the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. Once the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was released, it would fly everywhere. In the end, no one knew where it would end up. Mo Xie naturally could not just let it be. Just like the Emperor of Heaven, a small porcelain bottle could contain the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. However, the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had already lost its consciousness. It was not like the Emperor of Heaven's remnant soul that had a clear consciousness and could even communicate freely with others. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul could not do this. The light dissipated, leaving only a porcelain bottle floating quietly in the air. Mo Xie glanced at Tang Zheng and shamefully put away the porcelain bottle. He was worried that Tang Zheng would make a move at the last minute, but now it seemed that he was measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Mo Xie felt extremely ashamed and had nothing to say. Tang Zheng's expression was calm as he said, "You already have the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. Are you going to revive him next?" Mo Xie nodded. "Of course." Tang Zheng's expression tightened as he asked, "Will it be like what happened on Mount Tianshan, where all living beings in the world will be poisoned and destroyed?" This was a question that Tang Zheng was most concerned about. If things continued like this, then no matter what, he would keep Mo Xie here. He had already helped him obtain the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor, so he had fulfilled his promise. Even if he captured him again, he would not break his promise. Mo Xie lowered his head in shame, unable to face the crowd. Back then, he was blinded by lard and only wanted to revive the Yellow Emperor. He did not hesitate to use the Golden Crow's soul again and again, causing all living beings in the world to be destroyed. If Tang Zheng and the others had not stopped him, he would have made a big mistake. Later on, Mo Xie suffered a crushing defeat and became a loner. He stayed in Shumi World by himself for so long. He constantly reflected on why he had failed. In the end, he realized that he had deviated from the original intention of the Yellow Emperor. The Yellow Emperor was a benevolent ruler, a ruler praised by the people. However, what he had done was to destroy the people. For his own benefit, he had done anything. What was the difference between him and the Julie tribe and Chiyu? He regretted it. He also felt lucky. If the Yellow Emperor had really been revived and knew what he had done, he would not have tolerated him. Looking at his ashamed and speechless appearance, Tang Jung knew that things had taken a turn for the better. Sure enough, Xie finally raised his head again. The guilt in his eyes could not be erased. His entire aura had undergone a huge change. He took a deep breath and promised, "I promise you that I will not make the same mistake a second time." Back then, I used the Golden Crow's soul to revive the Yellow Emperor. I was blinded by greed, and my mind was blinded. After thinking about it, I am very ashamed. I have let down those who have died. Everyone looked at him in surprise and listened to him repent for what he had done. Tang Zheng's mind raced as he gradually understood his original state of mind. They were revived and came to a brand new world. Their bodies and minds had undergone a huge change, especially their state of mind, which was completely different from back then. That was why they wanted to restore the world to its original state. That was why they were so obsessed with their backbone, the Yellow Emperor. That was why they tried so hard to revive him. Now, Xie had already adapted to this world and the changes. Moreover, his failure allowed him to calm down. Only then did he realize how ridiculous his actions were. No one said anything. They seemed to have been affected by Xie's emotions. Even more people sighed in relief. If he continued to be stubborn, there would definitely be a conflict between the two sides. My actions have already committed a heinous crime. When a Yellow Emperor is revived, I will naturally ask for his forgiveness and take responsibility for my sins. He seemed to have used all his strength to say these words. Sweat continued to flow from his body. This wisp of the Yellow Emperor's soul is very complete. It is not as fragmented as the Golden Crow's soul. Therefore, there is no need for it to condense like the Golden Crow's soul. Naturally, that kind of disaster will not happen. I will choose a suitable body for the dead and revive him. I will definitely not harm any innocent people. Xie promised. After saying these words, his state of mind seemed to have become magnanimous. He faced Tang Zheng directly and accepted Tang Zheng's scrutiny. He no longer hid anything. Tang Zheng stared at him with a burning gaze. After examining him for a long time, he could see the magnanimity in his eyes. He no longer hid anything. He had truly come to his senses. However, he did not forgive Xie. After all, his actions had caused great harm to this world. Countless creatures had died because of him. He would never be able to wash away this sin in his lifetime. Even though he had come to his senses, he still had to bear these sins. From Xie's heavy gaze, he could see that these sins were tormenting his heart. This was something he deserved to bear. Tang Zheng nodded and asked, "Then where do you plan to go?" "I don't know. In this boundless world, I will find a suitable body to revive the Emperor," Xie said with certainty. Tang Zheng did not want to keep him. He muttered, "I hope you remember what you said today. Don't make the same mistake again. Otherwise, even if you go to the ends of the earth, I will still find you. No matter who wants to protect you, it will be useless." The current Tang Zheng had the qualifications and ability to leave behind such fierce words. No one dared to question him. Xie nodded heavily. Without saying a word, he walked out step by step. His footsteps were heavy, as if there was 1,000 kilograms of weight on his body. To read a novel without mistakes, please visit Chapter 1549. Xie left, leaving behind a room full of people who fell into silence. Everyone looked at each other because Xie's sudden awakening made them all emotional. However, they also let out a sigh of relief. At least they were sure that there would be no more danger of the Golden Crow's soul burning the earth. As for the Yellow Emperor's resurrection, whether he was a friend or foe, that was something that could not be determined for the time being. In fact, Tang Zheng was looking forward to seeing this legendary figure with his own eyes. He wanted to see for himself how extraordinary this legendary figure was. "Master, I have something to say to you." Linger's clear and gentle voice sounded. "Oh." Tang Zheng looked at her with a burning gaze. "Linger, what is it?" "There is something that I am unable to decide, and I want to ask for Master's opinion." Linger said hesitantly. "What is it?" There was once when I accidentally used a spell in front of people and was photographed by them. That's why there are many rumors about me in the outside world, thinking that I am a cultivator. I don't know if I should admit it or deny it. Ling looked at Tang Zheng with sparkling eyes. Tang Zheng's eyebrows jumped and said, "There is actually such a thing." I know. Yi Dingdang jumped up from the sofa and said impatiently, "I saw this news when I was reading the gossip news. Many people are doubtful and many people are looking forward to it. Especially Ling Er's fans. They are looking forward to Ling being a cultivator." Ling looked gratefully at Yi Dingdang and quickly nodded to confirm this news. Why? Tang Zheng was confused and did not understand. Yi Dingdang said proudly, "Who told you to run around all day and not even know what is going on in this world? In the past, you have always deliberately hidden your cultivator identity and did not want the general public to know. But after these few battles and strange phenomena, the existence of cultivators is no longer a secret. The general public is not stupid. No matter how the government tries to refute the rumors, the general public will still think so." So what? Tang Zheng still didn't understand and asked. Since ancient times, humans have always worshipped the strong. Since cultivators are so strong, they would naturally be worshipped by others and gain a large number of fans. Yi Dingdang rolled her eyes. These are all very simple questions. You actually don't understand. Tang Zheng blushed with shame and laughed involuntarily. I'm too stupid. That's the truth. Yi Dingdang was as proud as a white swan, raising her snow-white neck. Tian Chanzi muttered to himself for a long time, as if he had recovered for the previous situation. He glanced at Yi Dingdang and said, "Little girl Yi is right. When the ancient cultivators were at their peak, there were indeed many fans. Especially in many large sects, there were many outer sect disciples. These disciples were unable to cultivate the true divine abilities of the sect, but many of them still enjoyed it and fought tooth and nail to enter. See, I was right." Yi Dingdang spread out her hands and said proudly. Tang Zheng nodded thoughtfully. He had overlooked this problem, but he also understood Ling Er's meaning. If she announced her identity, she would not be in too much danger and would gain more fans. Even if she denied it, it would not be Ling Er's style. She had always been straightforward and would not lie. This matter had already been hyped up by the fans. If she did not respond directly, it would not be in line with Ling Er's character and would cause a knot in her heart. For cultivators, there would always be a knot in their heart. In the future, it could develop into inner demons and hinder their cultivation. Tang Zheng naturally did not want to see this scene. Looking at Ling Er's expectant eyes, he asked, "Ling Er, after you announce your identity, you will not be in any danger, right?" Ling Er has never been lazy and has never slacked off in cultivation. Although I'm not as strong as Master, I still have the ability to protect myself, Ling Er said without fear. All right, if you want to announce your identity, then go ahead. In order to not leave a knot in Ling Er's heart because of this matter in the future, he agreed. Ling Er's face immediately revealed a brilliant smile. Clearly, she was also prepared to announce her identity. She did not want to hide it from those who liked her. Wow, Ling from now on, you will become a superstar. You will leave all the other stars in the dust. No one will be able to compare to you. Yi Dingdang exclaimed exaggeratedly with her mouth wide open. Ling said shyly, "How am I that strong? I still have a lot of things to learn." Tang Zheng then turned his head to Li Xiaotian and said, "Li Palace must do a good job of gathering information. After this news is announced, if there is any place or person that is unfavorable to Ling you must report to me as soon as possible." Li Xiaotian knew the position Ling had in Tang Zheng's eyes. He did not dare to neglect and nodded heavily. It was already late at night. Everyone chatted for a while before Tian Chanzi and Tang Dehai said their goodbyes and returned to their own villa. This villa had become Tang Zheng's property. Other than the few women and Tang Zheng, everyone else lived in other villas. Once they left, the surroundings quieted down. Everyone looked at each other. The meaning in their eyes could not be more obvious. They were all women. How could they not understand each other's thoughts? Ling, I've been influenced by what she saw and heard. She was no longer the little girl who did not know anything. Her quick-witted eyes turned, and she playfully said, "I'll go back to my room to rest first." With that, she flew up to the second floor with a tap of her foot. Princess, and had already returned to her own country. No one knew what she was busy with. Tang Zheng did not pay much attention to her in the first place. Naturally, he would not interfere. Thus, the people left in the room were all people who had intimate relations with Tang Zheng. Nana opened her eyes wide. She looked left and right. Although she was young, she was mischievous. She said something shocking. "Big brother, are you thinking of sleeping with someone?" Whoosh! Everyone's fair faces immediately turned red. Even Mu Hongyan's neck was red. Even though Tang Zheng's skin was thicker than the city walls, when he heard Wu Ji's childish words, his face was a little embarrassed. He touched his nose embarrassedly, not knowing how to reply. How did this child know so much these days? Everyone sighed in their hearts. They looked at Tang Zheng with a bit of blame in their eyes, as if to say, "Look, it's all because of your bad teachings." Mu Hongyan was even more embarrassed to stay. She hurriedly carried Nana and said, "Nana, children should not talk nonsense. You still have school tomorrow. I'll carry you to bed." With that, she looked around and met Tang Zheng's eyes. Obviously, she also wanted to be alone with Tang Zheng. However, because of her daughter's words, she could not stay any longer. She quickly carried Nan up the stairs. Nan laid on her mother's shoulder and pouted in grievance as she muttered. Nan didn't say anything wrong. You see, all the big sisters want to sleep with Big Brother. Nan is very smart. Nana had received the teachings of the Empyrean fairy. She was already very different from ordinary children. Her pair of eyes seemed to be able to see through many things. For the latest novel updates, please visit the website. Chapter 1550. Nana and Mu Hongyan returned to their room while the others fell into an awkward situation. They looked at each other, but no one had the intention to return to their room. They had been separated from Tang Zheng for too long, and it seemed that they really wanted to get closer to him. Fang Shi, Yi Ding Ding, Lu Qing Mei Wu, and Li Xiaotian all looked at Tang Zheng with sparkling eyes, as if their eyes could speak. Tang Zheng patted his head. This was the first time. In the past, they were all very reserved and would not be so straightforward. It seemed that he had underestimated the competition between women. Without a doubt, the time that Tang Zheng stayed at home was getting shorter and shorter. Everyone wanted to fight for themselves as much as possible. However, Tang Zheng was only one person after all. He could not split himself, so how could he be absolutely fair? "Aren't you guys going to rest?" Tang Zheng asked embarrassedly. "Of course we need a rest." Yi Ding Dang curled her lips, thinking that his question was unnecessary. Cough, cough. Then go back to your room and rest. Tang Zheng coughed and said, but no one moved. Their eyes did not want to move away from him. Tang Zheng had a headache. With so many people, how could he make a choice? Whoosh. He took a deep breath. He had to break this deadlock, but the problem was how to break it. Looking at these delicate beauties, he could only look at them without being able to eat them. The fire in his heart surged up with a whoosh. His pure yang energy had long been restless. If he had not deliberately suppressed it, it would have exploded long ago. At this moment, the women's pure yin energy had stirred up his pure yang energy, and there were signs of it exploding. Suddenly, he had an idea. His eyes turned, and he clutched his chest. With a scream, he fell onto the sofa. Aya, my pure yang energy exploded. Oh no, I'm dead for sure. He screamed. His cheeks turned red, and the redness reached his neck. It really did look like a sign of his pure yang energy exploding. Ignore him. He's lying to us. Yi Ding Dang pursed her lips. Obviously, she wasn't going to be fooled. Fang Shi's heart could not bear it. But just as she was about to open her mouth, there was someone who moved even faster. Lu Qingmei was like an arrow that left the bow, flying to Tang Zheng's side. Huh? The others were dumbfounded. How could she be so fast? Lu Qingmei had seen the signs of Tang Zheng's pure yang energy exploding. She knew that he was not faking it, so Tang Zheng was in great danger. In addition, Her status among the women was rather awkward. She did not have a presence, especially after Fong Shishir and Yi Dingdang formed a united front. As their former teacher, it was even harder for her to have a chance to interact with Tang Zheng in private. At this moment, she couldn't help but be the first to act. The others were taken aback. When she rushed to Tang Zheng's side, she realized that her movements were too fast. But there was no turning back. She resisted the burning cheeks and the shyness in her heart. She hugged Tang Zheng and said, "His body is so hot, like Luo Tai. It really is his pure yang energy exploding." In fact, Tang Zheng wasn't completely acting. It was half true and half false. His pure yang energy really couldn't be suppressed anymore. "I'll go dissolve his pure yang energy." She threw down a sentence, picked up Tang Zheng, and flew up into the air. Like a butterfly, she flew up to the second floor. Bang! The door closed. Only a few people were left looking at each other. They were filled with regret. Why didn't they act so fast? She succeeded first. Yi Dingdang pouted and said, "She's too cunning." She took advantage of the situation and snatched him away. The others felt the same. As expected of someone who had been a teacher, she was really smart and good at grasping people's psychology. Humph! Next time I definitely won't let her take the lead. Yi Dingdang waved her fist, gritted her teeth, and said to Fong Shishir, "Shishir, don't you think so?" Fong Shishir's heart was filled with regret, but her face was still red. She helplessly rolled her eyes at Yi Dingdang and said, "If you want to snatch him, then do it yourself." How could she say this kind of thing directly? Not to mention being shy. If others understood her intentions, then wouldn't the next time be snatched away by others? The few people resentfully dispersed. They couldn't really rush into Lu Qingmei's room and snatch Tang Zheng out. That would be harder than pulling a tooth from a tiger's mouth. Moreover, there was probably a shameful scene inside. If they rushed in like this, it would be unbearable to look at. Thinking of that scene, the few people couldn't help but blush. Their minds rippled, and a warm current seemed to surge out from the depths of their bodies. The few people had a tacit understanding and returned to their respective rooms without saying a word. But thinking of the scene in the room, no one could sleep. Tang Zheng's pure yang energy had indeed exploded. At the moment, he deliberately pretended to give up a part of his resistance. The pure yang energy was like a volcanic eruption. It was no longer under his control and completely submerged his body. Lu Qingmei had just carried him into the room when his clothes turned into flames and burned fiercely. She was very clear that this was a true explosion of pure yang energy. Back then, Tang Zheng was like this. But she didn't care about her own safety and used her pure yin energy to help Mo get through the crisis. She secretly rejoiced that she had reacted in time. Otherwise, if she had delayed any longer, the consequences would have been unimaginable. She didn't even have time to take off her clothes before they were unconsciously torn off by Tang Zheng. In Tang Zheng's hands, no matter how tattered the clothes were, they were like a thin piece of paper, unable to withstand a single blow. Her clothes were in disarray and torn into strips. Her skin was half covered and half exposed, giving her a different kind of charm. Tang Zheng's eyes were red as he tightly wrapped her. Pure yin energy immediately seeped from her body into every pore of his. "Ah!" he cried out in comfort. The flames gradually extinguished, and he recovered a bit of his reason. Looking at Lu Qingmei's shy face, he said, "Sister Mei, it's been hard on you." Lu Qingmei glared at him and said, "You torturous little guy. You made me lose face in front of others." Her eyes were watery, as if she was coquettishly angry. How could Tang Zheng endure such a scene? He immediately shouted and laughed evilly. "Torturous little guy? Humph! I see you still dare to say little. This isn't little anymore." "Ah!" Lu Qingmei tenderly cried out and quickly hugged his waist. Her cheeks were drunk red, as if water could drip out. She clenched her teeth and half closed her eyes. Her breath smelled like orchids, and she couldn't say another word. The temperature in the room rose rapidly. Lu Qingmei couldn't control her body. It was like dry earth being moisturized by rain, her entire body becoming transparent. "Ah!" She couldn't help but cry out. Her voice wasn't soft at all. and it directly drilled through the crack in the door. Chapter 1551. Lu Qingmei was rarely this excited. It was as if her body did not belong to her anymore. She felt as if she was floating in the air, as if she was about to fly to the ninth heaven. She completely gave up on resisting. She was like 10,000 limpid autumn waters, allowing Tang Zheng to do whatever he wanted, changing into all kinds of embarrassing positions. She had never been so impudent before. The cries resounded throughout the villa, so she subconsciously knew that others would definitely hear them. However, since she had already taken the lead and carried him back to her room, then there was no need to deceive herself. Let's unrestrainedly release ourselves to our heart's content. She was happy, but the others were not happy at all. All kinds of feelings floated up in their hearts. Some people covered their ears with their blankets, while others closed their eyes in an attempt to sleep. However, those sounds seemed to be everywhere. It was not something they could not hear, even if they did not want to. Mu Hongyan did not know whether to laugh or cry. She thought to herself that young people were really having fun. Wasn't there still a child? Mother, Sister Qingmei is calling. Did something happen? Nana suddenly raised her head and asked curiously. Mu Hongyan hurriedly covered her daughter's ears and said, Nana, be good. Eavesdropping on other people's conversations is not right. Quickly go to sleep. Oh. Nana seemed to understand and immediately closed her eyes. Mu Hongyan did not want her daughter to be affected, so she hurriedly used her divine ability. An invisible barrier covered Nana, so no more sounds could disturb her. Not long after, Nana fell into a deep sleep. Aya, how could I forget this method? It's fine as long as we block out the sounds. Mu Hongyan slapped her head. She was not a normal person. Facing this powerless situation, she could completely block it out. However, just as she was about to use her technique, she could not help but stop. That sound seemed to have magic, causing ripples in her heart. She could not help but want to listen for a while longer. The others were in a similar situation as her. They all had a way to block out the sounds, but for some reason, they did not do so. They secretly listened in the corner. Suddenly, the sound stopped. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief at the same time, but there was a sense of loss and emptiness in their hearts. Lu Qingmei was completely out of strength. She lay limply on the bed. Tang Zheng got down from her body and said with a mischievous smile, Now you know how powerful I am? You dare to challenge me, just now. Let's see if you still dare to do so in the future. Lu Qingmei's seductive eyes were like silk. A single look from her seemed to contain thousands of words, as if water was about to drip out. She exhaled and said, You're so bad. Her jade-like hands couldn't help but touch his hard chest. Aya, why is it still so hot? Have you not finished neutralizing your pure yang energy? Lu Qingmei asked in surprise. How long has it been? I've been accumulating pure yang energy for so long. How can it be neutralized so quickly? Tang Zheng said with a mischievous smile. Seeing that he wasn't a teacher and was looking at her with a restless expression, Lu Qingmei hurriedly surrendered and said, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. You can go and harm other people. How can that be? You started the fire, so you have to be responsible for extinguishing it. Tang Zheng's hands touched her again. No, I'll help you call for help. Lu Qingmei hurriedly jumped off the bed. Her legs went soft, and she almost fell to the ground, which made Tang Zheng burst out laughing. Lu Qingmei coquettishly rolled her eyes at him, put on her pajamas, and walked out. Tang Zheng spread his legs wide open like a Chinese character. He lay comfortably on the bed, reminiscing about the wonderful moment just now. Thinking about it, his pure yang energy began to stir again. Creak. The door opened. Tang Zheng blurted out, Why aren't you running anymore? Come back obediently and accept my pure yang fire. Ah! Just as he finished speaking, he cried out in shock and almost jumped up from the bed. He looked at the person at the door and said, Sister Mu, why are you here? Mu Hongyan stood at the door, her face red. She felt that this was incomparably absurd. Since she was young, she had never done such an absurd thing. But there was a voice in her heart that incited her. So what if it was absurd once? If she missed this opportunity, then wouldn't other people seize the opportunity first? Thinking back to when Lu Qingmei sneaked into her room and said those words to her, her ears turned red. Lu Qingmei actually asked her to extinguish the fire. As the saying goes, keep the goodies within the family. Lu Qingmei and Mu Hongyan usually spent a lot of time in the company. They were colleagues and gradually became good sisters. Therefore, Lu Qingmei left such a good thing for her. Mu Hongyan wanted to refuse, but her body was very honest. There was no way for her to refuse. She was wearing a silk nightgown, which was faintly discernible. It made people's imagination run wild. She curled her lips and rebuked. Why can't I come? Are you not satisfied and want to change to someone else? No. Tang Zheng quickly denied. Mu Hongyan glanced at him flirtatiously and said, even if you want to change, I won't give you the chance. Seeing her walk to the bedside, Tang Zheng hugged her willowy waist, turned over, and pressed her on the bed, chuckling, how can I want to change people? I haven't doted on Sister Mu for a long time. Don't call me Sister Mu. It makes me sound old. Mu Hongyan put away her usual cold and aloof appearance in the company. Her hands hooked around his neck, her charming eyes like silk. Her red lips slightly opened, and her voice was soft and sweet as she said, call me Hongyan. Good, my good Hongyan. You are really a femme fatale. Tang Zheng lifted her chin and teased. You are the one who is a femme fatale. You're a femme fatale. Mu Hongyan met his gaze and said provocatively. In an instant, the room rang out again. It seemed that because there was a precedent, Mu Hongyan did not control herself. Her voice was louder than Lu Qingmei's. This was like a declaration of sovereignty. He was not only someone else's, but also hers. The others thought that they could sleep. Although their hearts were fluctuating, they still forced themselves to sleep. Otherwise, it would not be beautiful if they had panda eyes tomorrow. However, after a while, the sound rang out again. Could it be that they are fighting again? Many people had a strange feeling in their hearts. No, this is not Lu Qingmei's voice. It seems to be Mu Hongyan's voice. Oh, why is she with him? Many people had the idea of favoring one and discriminating against the other. It was fine that Lu Qingmei made the first move, but why was Mu Hongyan also involved? What about them? Many people really wanted to rush out and question Tang Zheng, but when they thought of the scene they might encounter, they could not help but stop. They could only continue to eavesdrop in the corner. They had never felt that a night would be so long. They tossed and turned, and some even directly sat up. Some tried to practice to pass the time, but when they heard the sound, their true qi almost went astray. If they continued to practice, they were afraid that they would be possessed by the devil. Humph, this heartless thing. Everyone fiercely cursed Tang Zheng in their hearts, but they could not hide the faint sense of loss in their hearts as they looked towards the door anxiously. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1552. Tang Zheng looked at Lu Qingmei, who was lying limp on the bed. He carefully examined the pure yang energy in his body. It was clear that his realm had increased too much and his cultivation had increased too quickly. The corresponding pure yang energy had also erupted too quickly. After tossing and turning for half the night, the pure yang energy was still not completely neutralized. It could even be said that half of it had not been neutralized. No, I can't leave behind any hidden dangers. In addition, with such a big commotion just now, if I do it carelessly, I'm afraid other people will have opinions. I won't be able to have a good time tomorrow. He patted his chest and glanced at his lower body. Brother, I'll have to trouble you then. Mu Hongyan looked like she was drunk as she half closed her eyes in satisfaction. Seeing Tang Zheng mumbling to himself as he got off the bed, she lazily asked, what are you going to do? Hey, of course I'm going to do something good. You should rest well, Tang Zheng said with a mischievous smile. Mu Hongyan looked at his smiling face and knew he was up to no good. However, her body was weak and she was too lazy to care about him. She comfortably laid down. Tang Zheng's clothes had already been burnt to a crisp. He looked at his naked body. Since there were no outsiders in the villa, and he wasn't afraid of being seen in the middle of the night, he simply swaggered out. Half asleep and half awake, Mu Hongyan heard another cry. She thought it was a dream, so she turned around and said in a daze, even dreams are not peaceful. AI, that little guy is too torturous. E. Suddenly, her eyes flew open, her gaze fixed on the outside. That cry became exceptionally clear. He finally knew that this was not a dream, but reality. She instantly understood why Tang Zheng had sneaked out. Suddenly, she said in embarrassment and anxiousness, "This guy actually went to another room. He's really not afraid of spraining his waist. AI, whatever. I can't be biased. At least he has a little conscience." After experiencing a fierce battle, her body was weak and her eyelids were heavy. She simply did not want to think about this ridiculous guy and fell asleep. That night was truly absurd. No one had ever been so absurd before. The screams only stopped when the sun was about to rise. In the end, Tang Zheng was chased out of Li Xiaoyan's room. He had no choice. He was the last one to go to her room, and he had made her wait for him all night. Naturally, he was angry. Although Li Xiaoyan was usually obedient to her and obeyed her orders in the company, when men and women were in bed, how could they still follow the company rules? Li Xiaoyan naturally recovered her feminine side. Moreover, Li Xiaoyan had practiced the art of seduction before, so her skills in that aspect were much better than others. She allowed Tang Zheng to try many things that he had never done before, making him enjoy himself so much that he forgot to return. Fortunately, his body was stronger than most people's, and he also had a divine technique to protect his body. Otherwise, he would have lost half of his life after such a night of torment. Even so, when he finally left Li Xiaoyan's room, his legs were a little weak, and he staggered back to his room. He did not sleep, but cultivated. Cultivating was a better way to recover than sleeping. After the pure yang energy was neutralized, the circulation of his true qi was exceptionally smooth, and all kinds of divine abilities were used freely. His body recovered very quickly. By the time the sun rose to the middle of the sky, he had completely recovered. He was full of vigor and could fight for another 300 rounds. When he opened the door, he found that only Nana and Linger were playing in the living room. The others had not woken up yet. Aya! Tang Zheng suddenly slapped his head. He had actually forgotten about the two of them. He had caused such a big commotion, and it would be a great sin if it affected their minds. However, fortunately, they did not look at him strangely, so he was slightly relieved. Of course, Linger had heard those voices. Although she was inexperienced, she had struggled in the entertainment industry for so long. So how could she not understand what was going on? However, she was not surprised at all because in her heart, her master was high and mighty, omnipotent. To be able to be with him, that was a supreme honor and luck. She could not help but envy them in her heart. Tang Zheng consciously went to the kitchen to make a table of delicious food. They had exhausted themselves in the battle last night and needed to be well nourished. When the sun was high in the sky, the others gradually woke up. Each of them looked radiant and beautiful. They looked at each other and hurriedly turned their heads away. The shyness in their eyes could not be concealed. After this battle, everyone's relationship was truly laid out on the table. If the eldest brother did not say anything, then no one would say anything. Especially when they saw that Tang Zheng had made a table of food, a sweet feeling emerged in their hearts. It was unknown if the others were aware of this and deliberately created an environment for them, but no one came to the villa for the whole morning. After lunch, Linger left. She had to go back to work. She had the potential to be a workaholic. Tian Chanzi also came. He looked at him meaningfully, then swept his gaze over the others and said in a low voice, "You must be tired from last night." Tang Zheng patted his body and said, "Do I look tired to you? Young man, even if your body is good, you should take it easy." Heh, at that time, you still righteously rejected my suggestion. Now, aren't you doing it? You are a celestial with a 9-yang saint body. This is your fate. You should accept it, Tian Chanzi said. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and inwardly sighed, saying in his heart that the capable should do more work. Since this is my life, then I can only accept it. If other men heard these words, they would definitely want to chop him to death. They also wanted to accept their fate, but they did not have this fortune. When the others heard the two of them muttering, they fiercely glared at Heaven Monk. They were old and disrespectful, one old and one young, Neither of them were old things. Cough, cough. Tian Chanzi coughed twice. He seemed to have recovered his seriousness and said, "The spring festival is coming. We should try to settle the matter in Dianan before the spring festival." Tang Zheng nodded. He also had this intention. "Then we should find a day to leave as soon as possible. What are we waiting for? Can't we do it today? Don't tell me you are too tired and have no energy?" Tian Chanzi looked him up and down and mischievously asked. "Nonsense. How could I have no energy?" His energy had indeed recovered. After neutralizing the pure yang energy and cultivating, he had already recovered to his peak state. Moreover, he did not need to worry about the pure yang energy erupting. This was the best time to fight. "Then don't dawdle," Tian Chanzi urged. "We also want to go." Hearing this, the other women all stopped what they were doing and looked at Umo with burning eyes, volunteering to do it. "I also want to go." Nana heard the two words Dianan. That was her hometown, so she also raised her head. Her eyes were firm and did not allow anyone to refuse. To read the latest novel without error, please visit Chapter 1553. Everyone wanted to go to Dianan and help Tang Zheng. However, this was unrealistic. In the end, Mu Hongyan and Nana were approved to go together. Other than them, even Li Xiaotian did not have this opportunity. After she took control of the Li Palace, she had taken several risks with Tang Zheng. In order to balance the relationship between the women, Tang Zheng could not allow her to go together. Otherwise, the others would definitely have objections. This trip to Dianan was extremely dangerous. Tang Zheng did not want them to take the risk. In the end, they talked until their mouths were dry, and Umo did not agree to anyone else. Tian Chanzi naturally could not go. There must be a general in the family. After the Empyrean fairy left, Tian Chanzi became the most suitable candidate. The others were unhappy. There was nothing they could do, even if they went. They could only hold back their energy and hope that their cultivation would improve faster. Only then would they have the opportunity to help him and not be a burden. In addition, there were also the four symbols, Azura, and Thundercloud Beast traveling with him. He would not ignore these generals. After Little White left, these few divine beasts did not seem to be in high spirits and were sullen. Therefore, Tang Zheng planned to use battle to stimulate them. Especially the Thundercloud Beast, it was the first mythological beast to follow him. Although it was due to Xiao Bai's face at the beginning, now it had sincerely pledged allegiance to Tang Zheng. On the somersault cloud, Tang Zheng, Mu Hongyan, and Nana stood on the clouds and looked down. Nana was extremely excited. She kept jumping up and down, as if she wanted to test whether this marshmallow-like somersault cloud was elastic or not. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth hung a shallow smile as he watched her mischief. Mu Hongyan advised her a few times, but Nan did not listen. It was as if she knew that Tang Zheng was her backer and would comply with her every wish. Tang Zheng also really loved this little girl. During this period of time, he really didn't accompany her properly. She had grown a lot taller and more beautiful. Mu Hongyan helplessly said, "Just give in to her. When the time comes and she develops all kinds of bad habits, I will find you to settle the score." Tang Zheng lovingly stroked Nana's hair and said, "She's so obedient. How could she have any bad habits? Don't worry too much." Mu Hongyan smiled knowingly. She knew her daughter very well. She had been well-behaved and sensible since she was a child, especially after she recovered from her illness. She often helped Mu Hongyan do what she could. She also said that her mother used to take care of her too hard, and now she wanted to repay her filial piety. Mu Hongyan was moved to tears. "Will I be able to see Grandpa when I go back this time?" Nana asked expectantly with her big, sparkling eyes. Ever since the mother and daughter broke off with the Long family, they had never returned to the Long family in Dianan. Naturally, they had never seen Long Xianyuan again. Hearing this, Mu Hongyan's expression became unnatural. If there was anyone in the huge Long family that they would still miss, it would only be Long Xianyuan. Back then, Long Xianyuan treated them quite well, especially doting on Nan. It was a pity that he did not truly fulfill his responsibility as the head of the family, and allowed his youngest son to repeatedly harass and target the mother and daughter. Therefore, Mu Hongyan still had a knot in her heart. Mu Hongyan glanced at Tang Zheng. This matter was not something she could decide. Tang Zheng patted his head. He had actually forgotten a very important matter. Back then, in order to sow discord between Ji Wuxiang and Qi Yu, he had transformed into Qi Yu and shattered Long Xuanyuan's dantian. Later, he forgot to tell Mu Hongyan. Now that she mentioned it, he remembered again. There's something I haven't told you yet. What is it? It's about Nana's grandfather. Mu Hongyan's heart tightened. She knew that Ji Wuxiang had chosen Dianan as his base camp. It must be inextricably linked to the Long family. Could it be that Long Xianyuan had encountered an accident? What is it? His dantian was shattered by me, and he became an ordinary person. Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment, but still revealed the truth. Mu Hongyan heaved a sigh of relief. So that was the case. This was much better than she had imagined, although she also knew what a shattered dantian meant to a martial artist. But what was wrong with being an ordinary person? At least he could keep his life and not get involved in Ji Wuxiang's matters. He could live a quiet life and spend his old age in peace. With the wealth of the Long family, it was not difficult for him to be a rich man in his old age. Mu Hongyan pondered for a long time and said, "This is the best ending for him. It's good that you understand. I had no choice." Tang Zheng explained. Mu Hongyan squeezed out a smile, held his hand openly, and said, "I know your difficulties. Since I am already by your side, I will naturally think for you. The past is already a thing of the past, and I don't want to think about it anymore." Nana was a cultivator, so she did not know what a shattered dantian meant. She was only immersed in her own world, alive and kicking. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew over, and a figure flew to the front of the somersault cloud. Thundercloud Beast. "Master, we are about to reach the border of Dianan. There are no abnormalities for the time being," the Thundercloud Beast reported. The Thundercloud Beast took the lead and flew to the front to investigate the situation. "Don't go, stay by our side. We are about to enter the border of Dianan. Although we are in the sky, the celestial chest covers the sky and the earth. We may not be able to escape Ji Wuxiang's eyes." The Thundercloud Beast rubbed its fists. It had not exercised its muscles and bones for too long, and it could not wait to fight. After flying for a while, they had truly entered the border of Dianan. In the distance, there were hundreds of thousands of mountains that rose and fell one after another. It was almost impossible to see the end at a glance. That place carried too many memories of Tang Zheng and the Thundercloud Beast. He could not help but look into the distance. After a while, he slowly withdrew his gaze and fell on the city under his feet. The terrain of Dianan was complicated, and the mountains rose and fell. As a result, the city was built on the mountains and was not orderly. "Hey, why has Dianan changed so much?" Suddenly, Mu Hongyan said in surprise, staring at the city under her feet. "Why do you say that?" Although Tang Zheng had come to Dianan several times, he had not carefully observed the city. Mu Hongyan had lived in the city since she was a child, so naturally, she knew more about it than him. Mu Hongyan pointed to a huge flat ground not far away and said, "There used to be a museum. It was quite large, but now it is gone." Her eyes turned, and she pointed to another place and said, "There used to be a government department. A very magnificent office building was built there, but now it is gone." Mu Hongyan pointed out a few more places. Anyway, it was very different from the Dianan in her memory. There had been earth-shaking changes. A person's memory would not have such a big mistake. The only explanation was that Dianan had really been turned upside down, and it was no longer the Dianan of the past. Tang Zheng believed in Mu Hongyan's judgment and looked in the direction of her finger. Gradually, his expression became dignified. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1554. Tang Zheng's expression was solemn as he gradually saw through the clues. If the huge southern Yunnan was treated as a chessboard, then the places that Mu Hongyan pointed out were a few key nodes. Pulling one would affect the whole body, which was extremely important to the celestial chess. He suddenly realized, no wonder there was such a huge change. Ji Wuxiang has already treated the entire southern Yunnan as a big chessboard and set up a huge celestial chess. Those few points are the places where changes or sacrifices must be made. He was extremely shocked. It seemed that Ji Wuxiang had already completely controlled southern Yunnan. Southern Yunnan had already become a country within a country, his independent kingdom. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to complete so many things in such a short period of time. He's really going all out. Is he going to stay in southern Yunnan and not leave? Although this was a big deal, it could only affect southern Yunnan and had little impact on other places. However, when Tang Zheng looked at the 100,000 mountains not far away, he knew the meaning of Ji Wuxiang's move. Southern Yunnan was backed by the 100,000 mountains, and it was not a small place. Once the city and the 100,000 mountains were used as a huge chessboard under the effect of the celestial chess, it was completely possible to use a fulcrum to pry open the entire country. At that time, he could really rely on southern Yunnan to affect other places. When he thought of this, he stared at the 100,000 mountains with bright eyes. He did not know if he did not look, but when he looked, he was shocked. He and the thundercloud beast had both overlooked one point. The 100,000 mountains seemed to have changed as well. Thundercloud beast, look at the 100,000 mountains. He hurriedly shouted. The thundercloud beast looked over, and after a while, its eyes bulged. It had lived in the prehistoric heavenly tomb for so many years, so it was very familiar with that area. Now that it looked over there, dark clouds covered the area, and a huge flat ground seemed to have appeared on the ground. Without a doubt, that was definitely Ji Wuxiang's doing. The man and beast looked at each other. There was no need to say anything. They already understood each other's thoughts. Tang Zheng's face was as gloomy as water as he said, "It seems that we still underestimated Ji Wuxiang. The speed of his actions is far beyond our imagination." Ji Wuxiang had already extended his evil claws to the 100,000 mountains. In other words, what he had already done, or was currently doing, could completely multiply the power of heavenly chess, to the point where he could use a single point to move an entire country. In addition, there was also Mount Buzhou in the 100,000 mountains. Yin Xingyi had once predicted that Mount Buzhou would be the key to the end of the world. Could it be that the apocalypse was related to Ji Wuxiang? Tang Zheng was very clear about the power of the heavenly chess. Once the heavenly chess went out of control, he was not sure if it would lead to the end of the world. After hearing their words, Mu Hongyan also realized the seriousness of the matter and said, "Then what should we do next?" Tang Zheng retracted his gaze from the 100,000 mountains and said, "Then let's go to the 100,000 mountains first." Mu Hongyan thought for a moment, then shook her head and said, "Things have developed to such a serious point. We must cut the Gordian knot and disrupt the enemy's pace as soon as possible. Therefore, I think it would be more effective to divide the troops into two groups." Mu Hongyan managed a company with so many people, so naturally, she had her own opinions and judgment. Therefore, her words touched Tang Zheng's heart. However, Tang Zheng still refused without hesitation. "It's too dangerous." The danger was not to Tang Zheng, but to Mu Hongyan and Nana. Mu Hongyan was very clear about this. However, if she always lived under the protection of Tang Zheng and let him shelter her from the wind and rain, would she be helping him or dragging him down? This time, she set a goal for herself. That was, she must not drag him down. If he was dragged down because of her when they just arrived in Dianan, she would rather go back. Nana and I are not powerless to protect ourselves. Moreover, we were born and raised here. You are all familiar with it. Therefore, if there is really danger, we will escape. There will always be a place for us to hide in the streets and alleys." Mu Hongyan said persistently. Nana also nodded seriously. "Brother, I have grown up. I will protect my mother well and won't let outsiders hurt her. You can rest assured." Obviously, the little fellow was also very confident. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He touched her head and said, "What are you doing here?" Nana pouted and said, "I'm not here to join the fun. I'm here to help." Tang Zheng understood Mu Hongyan. Once she made a decision, he certainly could not change it. Moreover, her words were very persuasive. Well, but the thundercloud beast must follow you and protect your safety. Thundercloud beast, do you hear me? You must protect their safety. Tang Zheng solemnly exhorted. The thundercloud beast flapped its wings a few times and said, Master, you can rest assured. If anything happens to them, you can hold me responsible. In addition, if there is really danger, hide and protect yourself first. This is the most important thing. Tang Zheng held Nana in one hand and Mu Hongyan in the other. Mu Hongyan nodded meekly and said with a smile, I know. Wow, Nana is finally going to beat the bad guys. I'm so happy. Nana was in high spirits. She suddenly jumped up and kissed Tang Zheng on the face. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. Nana, you sneak attacked me. Nana smiled even more brilliantly. Her two little dimples were round and beautiful. She tugged at Mu Hongyan's hand and said, Mother, I already kissed Big Brother. You should kiss him too. Kiss me too? Mu Hongyan's face immediately turned red. This was really her own daughter. Yes, I have to kiss him. This is to give Big Brother the courage to fight. It's always like this in the movies, Nana said in a serious tone. Mu Hongyan rolled her eyes. What kind of lousy movie was that? She would definitely not watch it in the future. She could not continue to poison her daughter. However, she could not dissuade her daughter. She leaned over and kissed Tang Zheng on the face. Although she did not stop, the two's hearts trembled slightly. They looked at each other with eyes full of deep affection. Thank you, Nana. Then I will also give you courage. Tang Zheng deduced many things from one example. He kissed Nana on the face and then affectionately kissed Mu Hongyan on the lips. Mu Hongyan was shocked as if she had been electrocuted. She stared blankly at him. Her white cheeks turned red directly to her ears. It was sweet and shy. Oh, Big Brother gave us courage. We are filled with courage. Thundercloud Beast, hurry up. Let's fly down. Nana jumped onto the Thundercloud Beast. The Thundercloud Beast immediately grew bigger and carried her. Mu Hongyan and Tang Zheng's hands were still tightly held together. They were reluctant to part. Their eyes met, filled with affection. Mu Hongyan gently said, You must be careful. You must take care of yourself. Don't try to be brave. You too. With my current cultivation, it will not be easy for Ji Wuxiang to hurt me, Tang Zheng said confidently. Chapter 1555. 100,000 Great Mountains, revisiting old places, gave birth to many emotions. The miasma from back then had long since disappeared. In the distance was the homeland of the Witch Clan. It had long been destroyed in the Great War, leaving behind only a mess. In front of him was the Witch Clan's holy land. Xiaobai was born here, but because of the volcanic eruption, his appearance had long changed. Memories gushed out from the bottom of Tang Zheng's heart like spring water. Along the way, he saw a few places razed to the ground. Lakes were filled in, mountains were pushed down, and towering trees were cut down. Everything seemed to be far from what he remembered. Tang Zheng's heart gradually turned cold, and he muttered to himself, Ji Wuxiang is really crazy to set up such a huge chess game. Back then, the heavenly chess that Ji Wuxiang had set up in the capital seemed vast, but in reality, it could only be considered an experimental version. Now, the heavenly chess had merged with Dianan and the 100,000 Great Mountains, and its area was vast, extending to the end of the horizon, causing one to feel a deep sense of shock. If anyone else saw this scene, they would definitely rush down and destroy the nodes of the heavenly chess. However, Tang Zheng understood the heavenly chess very well, and knew that these nodes were just minor details. There was nothing to worry about, and even if they were destroyed, it would not affect the entire game. He had already deduced according to the heavenly chess and confirmed that two places were the core of the heavenly chess. One was Dianan City, and the other was the prehistoric heavenly tomb. One in the east and one in the west, they were the head and tail of each other, echoing each other from afar. This was the true core node of the heavenly chess. Therefore, his target was the prehistoric heavenly tomb. The prehistoric heavenly tomb was already in sight. The aura inside was constantly changing like the center of a storm, but also like another world. As expected, Tang Jing's eyes lit up, confirming his guess. Whiz! Suddenly, a sound of something tearing through the air silently approached, interrupting Tang Jing's thoughts. A sharp force shot over from below, heading straight for the somersault cloud. Tang Jing stood on the somersault cloud. Looking down, it was just an ordinary cloud. Of course, other than the fact that its flying speed was a little fast. Tang Jing's pupils shrank. He thought to himself that the other party really couldn't hold back anymore, and actually took the initiative to attack. He didn't think that he had gone deep into the 100,000 Great Mountains without being discovered by the Heavenly Chess. Although he was well-versed in the Heavenly Chess and could use some rules to avoid detection, it was impossible for him to remain undiscovered for a long time. If that was the case, then Ji Wuxiang was too weak. Tang Jing lowered his head to take a look. It was a beam of light that had already arrived below the somersault cloud. Whoosh! A beam of sword light flew out of his hand and easily struck the invading enemy. There was a loud explosion, and everything was calm again. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, the calm didn't last for too long. Numerous sounds of the air being torn apart arrived unexpectedly like a violent storm slapping the ground, covering the sky and covering the sun. Interesting. It was actually a rain of arrows. The strangest thing was that every arrow had a trace of the power of the stars on it. Tang Jing glanced at the sky and found another clue. The sky above the 100,000 Great Mountains was actually different from the sky elsewhere. Ordinary people couldn't see the difference, but Tang Jing could. Although it was broad daylight and the sun was shining brightly in the sky, there were actually faint glimmers of the stars. This is the effect of the Heavenly Chess. The Heavenly Chess absorbed the power of the stars, and martial artists could already absorb the power of the stars. Therefore, the power of the stars in Dianan was especially abundant. When Tang Jing entered Dianan, he realized this. Especially when he went deep into the 100,000 Great Mountains, this feeling was especially strong. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth had become very scarce. Instead, the power of the stars was increasing. Suddenly, he realized a key point. The less spiritual energy there was, the more it would limit a cultivator's strength. Once the spiritual energy was completely gone, then once a cultivator was exhausted, he would not be able to replenish his true qi. Ji Wuxiang's plan is really too good. Once there is no spiritual energy in Dianan, then this place will become his independent kingdom. Only his warriors can cultivate to their heart's content and increase their strength, and the only threat is the cultivators. However, cultivators can't fight in Dianan for too long, then he will truly be in an invincible position. The more Tang Jing thought about it, the more shocked he became. Ji Wuxiang could definitely fight steadily step by step, and then use Dianan as a stronghold to expand outward step by step. In the end, the entire country and even the world would become like this, and then the cultivators would no longer have a place to live. Without spiritual energy, it would be a disaster for cultivators, but ordinary people would not be affected. Warriors would become high and mighty, and they would have to submit to Ji Wuxiang. A few hundred years ago, New Era expelled the cultivators to the sky beyond heaven, allowing the warriors to become the top group. Now that the cultivators have returned, the advantages of the warriors have disappeared. I never thought that there would be another Ji Wuxiang. He was even smarter than New Era, and even more capable. He actually came up with such a method. He didn't even need to expel the cultivators. He could just kill them all. Tang Jing was previously worried about the end of the world, but now he didn't have the mood to worry about this. Furthermore, he wasn't sure if his guess was correct. However, one thing was certain. If he did not stop Ji Wuxiang, then the end of the world of cultivators would definitely come early. The Azure Dragon Palace Hall was created by New Era, and Ji Wuxiang was New Era's successor. What happened hundreds of years ago was repeated in another way. I will definitely not let history repeat itself. Ji Wuxiang, I will definitely destroy your scheme. Tang Jing silently strengthened his conviction. So. The rain of arrows had already arrived in front of him, and the mysterious hidden sword flew up. Schwa, schwa, schwa. Rays of sword light shot out, dazzling and dazzling like fireworks, instantly blocking the somersault cloud. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sword light spun and unexpectedly met the rain of arrows. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous explosions resounded through the sky, spreading throughout the 10,000 huge mountains. Immediately, the scene in the prehistoric heavenly tomb changed. The aura became more and more chaotic, and it was truly like the eye of a storm, causing people to tremble in fear. Tang Zheng stared straight at this scene, completely ignoring the endless rain of arrows, and shouted, "Somersault cloud, go!" The somersault cloud's speed increased, and it was not afraid of the rain of arrows at all. The rain of arrows was completely blocked by the sword light, and was unable to take even half a step into the lightning pool. Halt! The rain of arrows was ineffective, and the martial warriors below could no longer remain calm. They all rose into the air and flew. Although they were martial warriors, ever since they absorbed the power of the stars, everything had undergone a tremendous change. Not only had their strength increased, flying in the air was no longer exclusive to cultivators. More than 10 martial warriors blocked Tang Zheng's path forward. Tang Zheng stood in the clouds and looked at them, not even wanting to say a word. Shua! The hidden mystic's sword swung out calmly, and the sword light cut through more than 10 people. They didn't even have time to scream, and fell from the sky one after another. The rain of arrows that covered the sky seemed to have lost its support and fell from the sky. To read a novel without mistakes, please visit Chapter 1556. With the obstacles removed, the somersault cloud flew into the prehistoric heavenly tomb like a ray of light. The pursuers soared into the air from the ground, but were left behind. The prehistoric heavenly tomb was already surrounded by a strong storm. Tang Zheng was inside and immediately realized the problem and couldn't help but exclaim, "There's no more heaven and earth spirit chi here?" Yes, the heaven and earth spirit chi in the prehistoric heavenly tomb had already disappeared, leaving only the surging power of the stars. The power of the stars above the 9 heavens had all gathered here. The storm-like scene was completely caused by a large amount of star power. Fortunately, Hong Yin and the rest didn't come. Otherwise, there would be no way to fight normally here. He couldn't help but secretly rejoice. Mu Hongyin's unintentional action was actually a blessing. This place is completely useless to other cultivators, but it's too useful to me. It's as if it's tailor-made for me. Ji Wuxiang never thought that I would take the risk and come to this prehistoric heavenly tomb. I want to absorb all the star power. Tang Zheng immediately activated his power, extended his hand, and the vast and mighty power of the stars entered through the pores of his fingers. In an instant, the aura of heaven and earth became more and more berserk, and the power of the stars gathered towards him from all directions. How dare you? Suddenly, an explosive roar came from the center of the storm. Then, a ray of light shot out from the eye of the storm. There was no sound, not even the sound of air being torn apart. It was very different from the rain of arrows that filled the sky. However, the biggest difference was in power. The power of this ray of light was many times greater than the rain of arrows. Tang Zheng had no choice but to stop. The speed of the light was too fast. In a moment of desperation, he could only hold the mysterious hidden sword horizontally in front of his chest. The sword light filled the sky, transforming into a screen of light, blocking the front of the somersault cloud. Boom! The ray of light struck the sword light. The sword light trembled intensely a few times before completely shattering, turning into specks of light that dissipated. However, Tang Zheng had already prepared his next move. With a shake of the hidden sword, he became one with the sword and flew out from the somersault cloud, slashing at the eye of the storm. As they approached the eye of the storm, they immediately saw a figure within it. This person was none other than Ji Wuxiang. He was surrounded by layers and layers of astral energy, appearing extremely mysterious and invincible. Ji Wuxiang's gaze swept over, causing the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. He immediately locked on a Tang Zheng and said in shock and anger, "Tang Zheng, you actually dare to come here and throw away your life. In that case, I will fulfill your wish." In the battle of the capital city, Ji Wuxiang had returned in defeat. It was a great regret, but it was also a great humiliation. Since Tang Zheng had rushed over, it was the perfect time for him to take his revenge. He grabbed out with his hand, and a surge of astral energy was firmly grasped in his palm. More and more star force gathered, and finally, it turned into a whip that was completely condensed out of star force. Whoosh! The long whip lashed across the sky, tearing the void and splitting the sky into two. Then, the whip fell in front of Tang Zheng. The air in front of him was immediately split into two as well. A majestic force covered the sky and earth, and it was exceptionally fierce. A soul-stirring pressure arose spontaneously, but Tang Zheng did not retreat. Instead, he became one with the hidden sword and pressed forward with an indomitable will. Poof! The hidden mystic sword landed on the whip, and the whip trembled a little, completely blocking the impact. The long whip took the opportunity to coil around the hidden sword, and a huge force seemed to want to break the hidden sword in half. One with the sword, "Humph! I will destroy both you and the sword." Ji Wuxiang's angry voice came. The hidden sword seemed to be really about to break from the pressure. If the hidden sword broke into two pieces, Tang Zheng would be seriously injured even if he did not die. However, a clear sound of the sword soared into the sky. It was like a clear sound that shook the world, sweeping away all demons and ghosts. Ha! The sword light illuminated the surroundings, and with a momentum that could cut through everything, it broke free from the long whip. The long whip broke, and, at the same time, the storm seemed to be split into two by the hidden sword. The hidden sword stopped in midair, and Tang Zheng appeared. The power of the sword was not small, and the power of the whip was not weak either. In the strong confrontation, the hidden sword won and broke the long whip. However, Tang Zheng had no choice but to separate from the hidden sword and reappear. The storm was completely stopped because of the sword. Ji Wuxiang stood not far away and looked at Tang Zheng. He could not hide the shock in his eyes. "Your cultivation, how did it increase so much?" Ji Wuxiang thought that after that battle, he learned from the painful experience, and with the help of the celestial chess, his cultivation increased by leaps and bounds and had undergone a tremendous change. This was already a miracle. However, Tang Zheng's cultivation had also increased by leaps and bounds and was not lower than his at all. In fact, it seemed that he had even surpassed him. One must know that the whip just now had borrowed the power of the celestial chess, and its power was even stronger than what he could use himself. However, Tang Zheng still broke it. Although there was a price, it was far lower than what Ji Wuxiang expected. How did you do it?" Ji Wuxiang asked in a stern voice. Tang Zheng could not see through Ji Wuxiang's cultivation. Ever since he used the power of the stars to cultivate, Tang Zheng could not see through him. Once other martial artists absorbed the power of the stars, the cultivator could not see through the cultivation of a martial artist. In this way, both sides could not see through each other's cultivation. It was like a blind man touching an elephant and could only know who was stronger and who was weaker after fighting. "Humph! You think only you can become stronger, and others can only stay where they are?" Tang Zheng asked with a cold smile. "So what if I become stronger? You're already in my celestial chess. What else can you do?" Ji Wuxiang asked disdainfully. "Have you forgotten? I also understand the celestial chess. You stole a bit of knowledge of the celestial chess from me, and you dare to show off in front of me? You are the one who should not forget that the celestial chess was created by me. It is like my child, and everything about it was given by me. If I wanted to change, it will naturally change. You don't really think that I would not consider you as a factor, right?" Tang Zheng's eyes narrowed slightly, and he asked, "What do you mean?" "Haha, I am not afraid to tell you directly. The celestial chess has already changed, and is not the celestial chess, you know. Moreover, I have specially prepared a gift for you," Ji Wuxiang said maliciously, the ruthlessness in his eyes growing stronger and stronger. Tang Jing's head trembled. Ji Wuxiang was really cunning and farsighted. After thinking so much, he had actually specially prepared a gift for him. This gift was naturally a trap. However, he was skilled and daring and was not afraid. Instead, he held his sword with one hand and walked on air as if he was walking on flat ground, walking step by step towards Ji Wuxiang. "I want to see what you have prepared for me," he said casually. Chapter 1557. The storm rose again, and it was even more violent than before. It covered the sky and completely enveloped Tang Zhong. Every step Tang Zhong took seemed to be extremely heavy, but even so, his pace did not slow down in the slightest. He was extremely steady. Swish! Sword light rose, and heaven and earth merged. Tang Zhong knew very well how powerful Ji Wuxiang's attack was, so he did not dare to be sloppy and directly used his most powerful move, heaven and earth merging. The power of this move, when he fought against Hao Tianwang, was still fresh in Tang Zheng's memory. Practice makes perfect. When his sword light rose, heaven and earth changed color. The storm in the surroundings became more violent and turbulent, layer upon layer, and the power of each layer quickly superimposed. At the same time, the sky seemed to be pulled down, and a terrifying pressure was exerted. The yin-yang fish also appeared in the sky and on the ground. They moved up and down and quickly closed together, making this pressure even more terrifying. The storm was completely enveloped by the yin-yang fish, and even Ji Wuxiang could not stay out of it. He looked up and then looked down again. His eyes were as deep as water, and he thought to himself, "This brat's strength has really reached the peak. He's actually so powerful." "Heavenly chest break!" Ji Wuxiang roared. Above the 9 heavens and the land beyond the heavens, the stars kept flickering, and the power of the stars rapidly descended. Thousands upon thousands of them fell like a meteor shower. The heavenly chest was immediately infused with a vast amount of star power. The windstorm grew rapidly with an unstoppable momentum, blocking the yin-yang fish that were closing in. The yin-yang fish actually retreated. Tang Jing's expression darkened. He did not expect the heavenly chest to change so much that it could actually withstand the attack of heaven and earth merging. "Ha ha ha! Tang Zhong, you overestimate yourself. You dare to embarrass yourself in front of me with this little trick? You're asking to be humiliated." Ji Wuxiang was exultant, and he could not stop laughing. Tang Zhong did not say a word. He deeply felt the power of the stars, and also found the problem. All of this was caused by the stars. Without the power of the stars, the power of the heavenly chest would be greatly reduced. "Then I'll make your star force vanish." Tang Zhong urged his power and quickly absorbed the power of the stars. The vast and mighty power of the stars seemed to have found an outlet, and all of a sudden, it converged towards him from all directions. Every pore on his body was stretched to the maximum. The power of the stars was rapidly accumulating in his body, and he didn't have time to convert it into true qi. Soon, his body reached a state of saturation. He was unable to continue absorbing the power of the stars. "Ha ha ha! I know you can absorb the power of the stars, so I'll let you absorb as much as you want. Continue, see if I'll be worried," Ji Wuxiang said proudly, as if he had already expected Tang Zhong to do this. Tang Zhong became very passive. He had no way to absorb the power of the stars, but the sky was still constantly replenishing the power of the stars. The storm was getting bigger and bigger, and it was spinning faster and faster. Tang Zhong was in the middle of it, and he could already feel the terrifying power of the storm. "Even if I can't absorb it, don't I still have the swallowing heaven technique? The heavenly realm is another world. I'll let you absorb as much power of the stars as you have." Tang Jing's eyes turned, and he stretched out his left hand. A black hole appeared in his palm, and it kept growing bigger. Then it flew out of his hand and floated in the air. Immediately, all the power of the stars in the world converged towards the black hole at an incomparable speed. It was not at the speed that Tang Zhong could absorb by himself. This speed was even faster than the power of the stars falling from the sky. The consumption was greater than the replenishment, and the power of the stars was decreasing bit by bit. Ji Wuxiang's smile froze. He didn't expect the situation to change so quickly, and the slap to his face so timely. Before he could react, the balance had changed. The yin and yang fish once again closed in on each other bit by bit. The terrifying pressure acted on his body, and he felt like his waist was about to be crushed. Close! Tang Zheng looked at this scene, and his heart was set. He roared loudly, and the yin and yang fish's speed suddenly increased, and it quickly closed. Boom! The storm was squeezed into the yin and yang fish. Ji Wuxiang hurriedly retreated at the last moment and dodged this attack. It was like heaven and earth were merging, and the pressure was unimaginable. Therefore, the storm disappeared as if it had never appeared, and the yin and yang fish began to spin in the sky. However, bang! A loud explosion burst out from the yin and yang fish. The yin and yang fish completely exploded, turning into countless rays of light that scattered across the sky. Obviously, the power of the storm was too strong, and the yin and yang fish could not be suppressed. In the end, the two forces collided and exploded, and both died, vanishing into thin air. Ji Wuxiang retreated far away. His face was pale, and he did not look good. From afar, he looked at Tang Zheng proudly, standing in the sky. The thousands of feelings in his heart were indescribable. Tang Zheng's mind was shaken. He had won this attack, but the consumption was huge. There was no more spiritual energy in this world. If it was anyone else, even if they had Tang Zheng's cultivation, after this battle, they would be powerless and would be doomed. However, Tang Zheng was different. He could absorb the power of the stars, so he did not have to worry about this problem. In a few breaths, he recovered and was eager to try again. In the explosion, the black hole was also affected and disappeared. However, Tang Zheng's harvest was not small. There was already a large amount of power of the stars in the heaven realm. If he relied on his own strength to absorb the power of the stars from the nine heavens, he would definitely not be able to do this, nor would he be able to do it so quickly. On the contrary, Ji Wuxiang had helped him a lot. Ji Wuxiang was not clear about the matters of the heaven realm, but he knew that the black hole was the heaven-swallowing technique. He was very fond of it. Wasn't the heaven-swallowing technique useless? Back then, even the people of the demon race were not willing to cultivate it. Why was it that in Tang Zheng's hands, it could actually produce such a huge power? Of course, he was not clear about the reason. Other than Tang Zheng, no one else knew. Tang Zheng looked at Ji Wuxiang from afar. Although the heavenly chess had changed, and he could not use the rules and loopholes of the heavenly chess to counterattack and dodge. Even if he faced it head-on, he could still withstand it. Ji Wuxiang, what other moves do you have? Use them all. Tang Zheng said as he approached. Ji Wuxiang's expression kept changing. He gritted his teeth and said, "Do you think it will be so easy to win? You think too simply." After pausing for a moment, he took a deep breath. Like a muffled thunder, he roared, "Kill him!" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures rose from the ground one after another. They were all warriors. They were densely packed like locusts, covering the sky and covering the sun. Tang Zheng was very curious as to where Ji Wuxiang had found so many martial artists that he could not kill them all. The warriors flew between Tang Zheng and Ji Wuxiang, forming a human wall, blocking Tang Zheng's path. Chapter 1558. The four symbols and the Azura had both turned into the height of an ordinary person. They did not look as scary as before, but their auras were completely different from the martial warriors in front of them. To read this book, please go to $cotton _flower _sugar _small talk _web. Tang Zheng pointed at the densely packed martial warriors and said indifferently, "I'll leave them to the two of you. Master, don't worry. I won't let them hinder you." The four symbols said solemnly. Ashura did not say anything at all. He grinned, but no matter how one looked at it, his smile was sinister, causing one's hair to stand on end. Shwa! When the Azura blade appeared, The Azura did not even need Tang Zheng's instructions and rushed out first. Although most of his evil aura had been purified by the Ksitigarbha scripture, he was still born of evil aura, so there was still an evil aura hidden in the depths of his heart. Now that he was released, he couldn't wait to start a massacre in all directions and fight to his heart's content. 1. The Azura blade started to tremble, continuously glowing, as if it was cheering, as if it was about to drink blood. The four symbols was not willing to fall behind. With a leap, they pounced into the midst of the martial warriors. Ping, ping, ping. The sky was filled with weapons, but the four symbols acted as if they did not see them. They allowed the weapons to hit them, but all of them returned empty-handed, not even breaking their skin. The original body of the four symbols was a divine level stone, which was not the slightest bit inferior to Tang Zheng's chaotic Vajra spell when it was cultivated to the extreme, so how could they be afraid of these weapons? No matter how sharp they would only suffer a loss. The Azura glanced at the four symbols, as if he was aware of the competition. The Azura blade in his hand danced even faster, leaving no gaps. Wherever it passed, the martial warriors would die. The Azura blade was filled with Yin Qi. Once the Yin Qi entered the body, it would cause fatal injuries. Some of these martial warriors did not seem to have died immediately, but what awaited them was an even more painful process. Although the Azura and the four symbols could not absorb the power of the stars to continuously replenish their power, with their strength, they could definitely hold on for a long time. The attacks of these martial warriors were not as ferocious as those of Ji Wuxiang, which could consume too much of their power. Tang Zheng no longer cared about the fierce battle. It directly walked through the crowd. Seeing this, the martial warriors all rushed over, but before they could get close to Tang Zheng, they were all killed by the four symbols and Azura. It was as if Tang Zheng had entered an uninhabited land as he easily passed through the human wall. His eyes suddenly lit up as the space around him became spacious. However, Ji Wuxiang had already disappeared. Tang Zheng frowned. Did Ji Wuxiang escape? That was not his style. This was Ji Wuxiang's last bargaining chip. If he escaped like this, then once Tang Zheng destroyed this place, it would be very difficult for him to have a chance to make a comeback. Therefore, Ji Wuxiang would definitely fight with all his might, even at the risk of sacrificing his own life. Gradually, Tang Zheng's gaze fell on the towering Mount Buzhou in the distance. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Ji Wuxiang had escaped to Mount Buzhou? No matter what, he would not allow Ji Wuxiang to escape like this. Therefore, he chased after him. Mount Buzhou did not seem to have changed much. Pure white snow covered it, and it was still as tall as before. There was no concealing array at the top of the mountain. At a glance, it seemed to be connected to the heavens. What is Ji Wuxiang's intention for escaping to this place? Tang Zheng did not think that Ji Wuxiang was escaping randomly. He definitely had a motive. No matter what the other party's motive was, he could only go up the mountain first. Stepping on the somersault cloud, he quickly rose into the sky. There seemed to be no trace of martial warriors on Mount Buzhou. In fact, there was not even a shadow of a person. Tang Zheng looked along the way. Other than white snow, there was only white snow. Ji Wuxiang, where exactly are you hiding? Tang Zheng's eyes were like those of a hawk. He did not miss a single detail. The battle in the distance was getting more and more intense. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The white snow on Mount Buzhou shook incessantly and fell with a crash. It was as though an avalanche was about to happen. Whoosh! The white snow on a cliff really fell. Then, it caused the white snow below to change rapidly like a rolling snowball. Then, an avalanche came. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Layers of white snow rolled rapidly. Mount Buzhou seemed to be shaking more violently. Back then, Tang Zheng mystique used to move mountains and moved Mount Buzhou a distance away to avoid the danger of Mount Buzhou collapsing. Moreover, Mount Buzhou was a sacred mountain. It had a guardian spirit. The guardian spirit had once given Tang Zheng god power to repel the dragon slayer. Therefore, when he did not see Ji Wuxiang, he tried to communicate with the guardian spirit of Mount Buzhou. It was the guardian spirit of this mountain. It knew everything on the mountain like the back of its hand. It definitely knew where Ji Wuxiang was hiding. However, there was no response at all. It was as if Mount Buzhou was a dead object. How can this be? Back then, when Mount Buzhou's foundation was damaged, the guardian spirit could communicate with me and even gave me god power. Why is it that now that Mount Buzhou is undamaged, the guardian spirit has no reaction at all? Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked around, but did not find any clues. Ji Wuxiang. It must be his doing. What did he do to Mount Buzhou to make the guardian spirit of Mount Buzhou disappear? Tang Zheng's heart gradually sank. He also became cautious. Whoosh! Suddenly, a huge rock flew over from nowhere and smashed straight at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng quickly dodged. The huge rock landed on the ground at the foot of the mountain, smashing a hole the size of a football field. Hiss! He sucked in a cold breath. Where did this attack come from? He actually did not find any clues. Moreover, this attack was so strong that it shocked him greatly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More than 10 huge rocks flew over from above. They were like meteorites from outer space. As they rubbed against the air, sparks flew. The huge rocks came unexpectedly. The somersault cloud quickly dodged, while Tang Zheng wielded the hidden sword. The sword light danced and split a few huge rocks. However, his palms were sweating. The huge vibration was too strong. The huge rocks came from mountain. Could it be that Ji Wuxiang is really hiding at the peak? Tang Zheng finally saw the clues and shouted, "Somersault cloud, fly up." Whoosh! The somersault cloud became extremely agile. It quickly dodged and gradually flew up the mountain peak. Finally, he saw his target, Ji Wuxiang. He was really standing at the peak of the mountain, looking extremely carefree. He looked at Tang Zheng with satisfaction. It was as if he was not afraid of him at all. He had also forgotten about his failure just now. Ji Wuxiang, you really are here. Now you have no way out. Let's see how you can escape. Tang Zheng said with a murderous look. Ji Wuxiang laughed loudly. Tang Zheng, you really think you can kill me? You overestimate yourself and underestimate me. What other skills do you have? Take them all out. I want to see what other tricks you have. Tang Zheng said disdainfully. The heavenly chess was Ji Wuxiang's trump card. However, Tang Zheng could not guess what other tricks Ji Wuxiang could play with the heavenly chess. You want to see my trump card? Then I'll show it to you. As soon as Ji Wuxiang's voice faded away, a rumbling sound was heard. Mount Buzhou began to tremble. The pure white snow completely fell off, revealing the dark and hard rocks underneath. To download the latest TXT ebook, please click. To read this book on mobile, to comment. Chapter 1559. The pure white snow on Mount Buzhou slid down. It was as if Mount Buzhou had taken off its outer layer, revealing its true appearance. The entire mountain was made up of pitch-black rocks of strange shapes. The rocks were either ferocious, strange, or heavy. Rumble. Mount Buzhou was still shaking. Ji Wuxiang stood at the top of the mountain, high and mighty, looking insufferably arrogant. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have realized something strange. The guardian spirit of Mount Buzhou had lost contact. Could it be related to Ji Wuxiang? The commotion of Mount Buzhou was too great. It was probably related to Ji Wuxiang. Tang Zheng, it's not just about whether you can withstand the attack of Mount Buzhou. Ji Wuxiang asked proudly. As soon as his voice fell, a deafening sound came from Mount Buzhou. Then, Mount Buzhou rose from the ground. Mount Buzhou quickly became taller. The pitch-black rocks moved and turned into a stone giant in an instant. This was a real giant, standing between the heavens and the earth. His head seemed to really touch the blue dome of heaven. Ji Wuxiang stood on its head like a god, looking down on the world. Tang Zheng looked very weak in front of this giant. He was like an ant. At this moment, Tang Zheng was an ant in Ji Wuxiang's eyes. An ant that he could crush at will. Ji Wuxiang was fearless. With Mount Buzhou as his last resort, did he still need to be afraid of Tang Zheng? The answer was of course no. Tang Jing's heart was filled with shock as he finally understood why Ji Wuxiang was so fearless. Looking at the indomitable giant, his heart couldn't calm down for a long time, and even his breathing became hurried. Mount Buzhou had fallen into Ji Wuxiang's control. This was one of the important reasons why he had deliberately set up the celestial chess in the 100,000 Mountains. He had set his eyes on Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng, what do you think of my reliance? Ji Wuxiang boasted proudly. Tang Jing's expression darkened. The summersault cloud quickly rose to the same height as Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang, Mount Buzhou is a divine mountain. Do you think you can control it so easily? Haha, of course I know it's a divine mountain. I've looked up countless information and found out that Mount Buzhou was a mountain peak left behind when the world was created. Its magic is unimaginable. But so what? It's still controlled by my celestial chess. Now it's become my tool. Haha. Ji Wuxiang laughed maniacally. He had the right to be so arrogant. The celestial chess he had created was simply too miraculous. During this time, he set up the celestial chess around Mount Buzhou. Dianan and the 100,000 Mountains became a huge chessboard. In the end, the mighty power of the stars fell on Mount Buzhou. It constantly suppressed the divinity of Mount Buzhou. Mount Buzhou's divinity was suppressed, and its guardian spirit fell silent. Mount Buzhou was completely controlled by the power of the stars and fell into Ji Wuxiang's hands. He didn't expect that his improved celestial chess was still not Tang Jing's match. He had no choice but to use Mount Buzhou at this critical moment. He believed that if he had more time, he would be able to control Mount Buzhou better and not leave any flaws. However, things didn't go as he planned. He had no choice but to use Mount Buzhou. Dai Tang Zheng, Ji Wuxiang roared. Mount Buzhou moved. The huge foot made of rocks suddenly lifted and kicked at Tang Zheng. A vast and mighty power surged out. Tang Zheng immediately recognized that this was the fusion of the god power of the Buzhou mountain and the power of the stars. The power was extremely terrifying. Sure enough, he felt as if he had sunk into the sea. The air around him had undergone an earth-shattering change, and his body actually showed signs of being imprisoned. You want to defeat me like this? Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows. Xuanzang burst out with a bright light and wrapped him up in an instant. A giant sword gradually appeared. It crossed the sky as if it could pierce through the dome of heaven. The giant sword was too big. It was the biggest sword Tang Zheng had ever used. It was hundreds of meters long and was completely covered by the sword light. The sun in the sky was covered by the sword light. The people fighting in the distance were all affected. They subconsciously blocked with their hands. The sword light was like small sharp swords. If they didn't block it, they would be doomed. Ah! Suddenly, a few screams sounded. A few cultivators fell from the sky and were crushed to pieces. They were injured by the sword light. They were thousands of meters away, but they couldn't escape. It was clear how powerful the sword light was. The air near the sword light was completely fragmented. The atmosphere was chaotic, as if a storm was about to arise. Hum! The sound of the sword rang through the sky. Then, the sword light moved and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Such a huge sword light naturally wouldn't disappear into thin air. Instead, it flew out in extremely fast speed. It fell from the sky and slashed at the giant's leg. Tang Zheng didn't show any mercy. In such an earth-shattering battle, showing mercy would be handing one's life to the enemy. He wouldn't do such a stupid thing. He activated all the unrefined power of the stars in his body and covered the hidden sword. Then, he and the sword became one and intertwined to form a giant sword that crossed the sky. Whoosh! It was cut in half. A long black strip appeared in the void. It seemed that the space door was about to be cut open by the sword. Boom! The hidden sword slashed at the giant's leg. In an instant, the giant shook violently. A terrifying force rebounded from his leg. The hidden sword rose to the sky. The giant's leg fell back to the ground. Boom! It was earth-shattering. The ground cracked inch by inch under the giant's foot. It became riddled with holes. A huge pit formed under its foot. Whoosh! However, Mount Buzhou was far more powerful than that. So, in the next second, Mount Buzhou's fist came again. It was like a meteorite falling from the sky and smashed at the hidden sword. Clang! The hidden sword shook violently and flew to the ground. It went straight into the ground, and there was a person lying on the ground, Tang Zheng. Mount Buzhou's attack broke his state of being one with the hidden sword. Ji Wuxiang laughed arrogantly. Tang Zheng, stand up and fight. The show has just begun. Why did you fall? Tang Zheng climbed up with his hands on the ground. He didn't even look up at Ji Wuxiang. Instead, he stretched out his 5 fingers. Boom, boom, boom. The mountain shook as if there was an earthquake. Mount Buzhou couldn't stand still. It swayed as if it was swaying in the wind. Ji Wuxiang hurriedly stabilized his mind and body as he stared at Tang Zheng. The earth and rocks on the ground flew up into the air bit by bit. In an instant, the sky and earth turned gray. The ground under Tang Zheng's feet cracked. A ray of light penetrated through the crack. It was extremely sharp. The light flashed and flew into Tang Zheng's hand. Chapter 1560. The Ksitigarbha Sutra began to circulate on its own as a layer of golden light appeared on his body. The golden light gradually covered his entire body and intertwined into a golden kasaya. Ji Wuxiang was stunned. He didn't know about the Ksitigarbha Sutra, but he could clearly feel the change in Tang Zheng's aura. He seemed to have become stronger. Tang Zheng silently chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra, and Sanskrit chants descended from the sky. These Sanskrit chants didn't come from Tang Zheng's mouth, but reverberated in the natural world. It was as if heaven and earth had some kind of mysterious resonance with Tang Zheng, resulting in this change. What is this? Ji Wuxiang's expression turned cold as he asked loudly. Tang Zheng rarely used the Ksitigarbha Sutra in the human world, because the Ksitigarbha Sutra was more used to intimidate and convert ghosts. However, there was no doubt that the Ksitigarbha Sutra also had a very strong offensive ability. Otherwise, how could the Dizong of Goguryeo rely on the Ksitigarbha Sutra to rule the ghost world? A lotus flower appeared with every step, and this lotus flower didn't disappear. Wherever Tang Zheng passed, the lotus flowers connected, forming a staircase that extended all the way to mid-air. The Ksitigarbha Sutra. Tang Zheng said lightly. What the hell is that? Ji Wuxiang didn't know much about the ghost world, so naturally he didn't know the power of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. I don't care what sutra you are. Under the divine power of Mount Buzhou, everything is in vain. Only ashes can be scattered. Ji Wuxiang coldly snorted. Mount Buzhou once again raised its giant foot and stepped towards Tang Zheng, who was in midair. Hua! With a flash of golden light, the golden kasaya on Tang Zheng's body flew out, growing bigger and bigger until it covered the sky, flying towards the giant foot. The giant foot seemed to be stepping on clouds as it ruthlessly stepped on the kasaya. However, the kasaya didn't break. It only trembled a few times before it stabilized in midair. Tang Zheng's every step was like a lotus flower as he soared into the sky. With the sword in his hand, he looked like a handsome tree in the wind. He pinched a sword sign, and the sword of hidden darkness once again flew out, directly slashing towards Ji Wuxiang, who was on top of the giant's head. Ji Wuxiang's expression suddenly changed as he cried out in surprise. The golden kasaya had actually blocked the attack of Mount Buzhou, allowing Tang Zheng to have the energy to attack him. Sword come! Ji Wuxiang roared as a ray of light descended from the 9 heavens. This was the power of countless stars converging together to form a sword. But this sword was like a real thing, held in Ji Wuxiang's hand, and then chopped down from the sky, coincidentally colliding with the rapidly approaching Xuanzang sword. Clang! The 2 swords clashed, and only this sound was left in the world. Many people who were slightly weaker were directly knocked unconscious and fell down. Tang Zheng's mind shook, but he immediately calmed down. Without a doubt, Ji Wuxiang's use of the power of the stars had reached the peak, surpassing Tang Zheng's. Tang Zheng knew that he couldn't do this, But he had the sword of hidden darkness, which was not inferior to Ji Wuxiang's sword in the slightest. Clang! Ding-dang! The two swords went back and forth in midair, fighting happily. Their auras fluctuated, and the wind and clouds changed color. Unknowingly, a black cloud had gathered in the sky, and the world darkened. Crack! A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, and a heavy downpour poured down. The rain kept hitting Mount Buzhou, but it couldn't get close to Ji Wuxiang and Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had already flown to the peak of Mount Buzhou, but the divine power of Mount Buzhou kept him at the door. He couldn't step on the peak and could only hover in midair. A huge golden lotus spun incessantly beneath his feet, lifting him up. Ha ha! Tang Zheng, what can you do to me? Eat my sword. Seeing that Tang Zheng was already in front of him, Ji Wuxiang laughed wildly, and the sword his hand flew out, slashing straight at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng waved his hand, and the sword of hidden darkness flew back to his hand, and then he slashed down with all his might. This time, the sword of hidden darkness was connected to Tang Zheng, and its power was obviously stronger. When it landed on the sword of light, the sword of light was immediately shattered into pieces and disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng took advantage of the victory and prepared to climb to the peak of Mount Buzhou to give Ji Wuxiang a fatal blow. However, Ji Wuxiang's fingers moved, and with a single point of his finger, the wind and clouds changed, and the rain on the mountain peak stopped. The air also froze, and everything became strange. In the next second, a surge of divine power shot out. Bang! Tang Zheng blocked with his sword, but he couldn't completely block the divine power, and flew down like a kite with a broken string. Boom! With a loud sound, the golden Kasaya was affected by Tang Zheng and couldn't withstand it. It was ruthlessly stomped into the ground by Mount Buzhou's huge foot and exploded into pieces. Ha ha ha! Ji Wuxiang's wild laughter echoed between heaven and earth, and the rain continued to fall. Tang Zheng landed on the ground, his entire body drenched by the rain. He allowed the rain to splash on his face, and the surging power in his body made it impossible for him to immediately suppress it. He only felt that even breathing was a burning pain. Mount Buzhou's divine power is indeed extraordinary. He had once received the blessing of divine power and could actually force the dragon slayer to retreat, so he had a deep understanding of the power of divine power. At this moment, the divine power fell into Ji Wuxiang's hands, and he really couldn't kill Ji Wuxiang. But he had no way out, and if he didn't take this opportunity to kill Ji Wuxiang, then when he counterattacked, he would be even stronger. And how could he deal with it? I'll deal with him. Suddenly, an angry roar sounded, and a cloud of black gas flew over from afar, eerie and terrifying. When it arrived in front of Mount Buzhou, the black gas transformed into Azura. Roar! Azura roared into the sky, and the billowing energy spread in all directions. The ground under his feet was immediately infiltrated by the energy and turned pitch black. The energy wreaked havoc, and wherever it passed, the grass withered, and not a single blade of grass grew. Azura's body also expanded, and in a short while, he grew to the height of Mount Buzhou, holding the Azura saber in his hand, looking ferocious and terrifying. Seeing how powerful Ji Wuxiang was, the warriors left the four symbols to deal with, and Azura completely broke out of his ferocious nature and came to help Tang Zheng. Azura, be careful, Tang Zheng warned loudly. Azura didn't say a word and raised the Azura saber to attack. Clang! The Azura saber fell on Mount Buzhou, but there were no sparks. It was like a clay ox entering the sea, and there wasn't much effect. Huh! Azura was stunned, as if he didn't expect that his Azura saber couldn't hurt Mount Buzhou. Seeing this, Ji Wuxiang laughed complacently. Mount Buzhou is a divine mountain, protected by divine power. It's not something you can hurt as you wish, wishful thinking. Azura coldly snorted, and his eyes locked onto Ji Wuxiang. He flew up, and this time, the Azura saber slashed directly at Ji Wuxiang. Clang! The divine power rebounded, and the Azura saber flew out of Azura's hand. This was a rare occurrence, and the Azura saber and Azura were one, but it still flew out. Tang Zheng, I'll deal with your follower first. Ji Wuxiang roared, and Mount Buzhou attacked Azura with both hands and feet. Azura gave up on the Azura saber, and with his tall body, he tangled with Mount Buzhou. Chapter 1561. The battle between Azura and Mount Buzhou was earth-shattering. Mortals couldn't get close to it. With a stomp, the ground cracked. Bottomless fissures spread across the ground. With a punch, the rainwater seemed to be pulled apart by a string. The rainwater in the sky couldn't fall. The pits and ditches on the ground were filled with rainwater, turning into lakes and rivers. The mountains and rivers changed. The landscape changed drastically. Tang Zheng and Ji Wuxiang watched the battle with surging emotions. Even the martial artists in the distance who saw this scene were so frightened that they lost their minds and fell from the sky. The four divisions, on the other hand, were unaffected. Their fists landed on the bodies of the martial artists, killing them instantly. Finally, the warriors were either dead or injured. There was no one left in the sky. The four symbols hurriedly rushed towards Mount Buzhou. With every step he took, his body grew taller and taller. As he grew taller, the soil on the ground converged towards him. When he walked to the front of Mount Buzhou, he also turned into an indomitable giant. Ji Wuxiang's pupils shrank when he saw this. He was shocked that Tang Zheng had two such powerful helpers. Originally, he was full of confidence, but now his face became gloomy. Mount Buzhou killed him. Boom! Mount Buzhou's attack became even more ferocious. His fist penetrated Azura's chest. However, Azura sneered. You want to kill me just like that? Boom! Azura's fist also landed on Mount Buzhou. Mount Buzhou shook rapidly. Ji Wuxiang almost lost his footing. Azura was formed by yin qi and could change at will. If this attack didn't hurt his foundation. However, the serious look in Tang Zheng's eyes became more and more intense. Because he saw Azura's condition, the world was completely covered by the power of the stars. There was no yin qi or spiritual qi of heaven and earth. After a tough battle, Azura was exhausted and couldn't continue. As expected, Mount Buzhou only shook a few times. The storm-like fists passed through layers of rain and landed on Azura. Boom! The Azura couldn't resist and fell to the ground with a loud bang. Streams of yin energy splashed out as his body rapidly shrank. Does that mean I can kill you now? Ji Wuxiang said fiercely. Whoosh! One of Mount Buzhou's legs left the ground and landed heavily on the Azura. Boom! With a loud noise, the four elephants rushed over and struck Mount Buzhou's waist with a punch. Mount Buzhou quickly moved backward and slid out a long ditch on the ground. The rain became heavier and filled up the ditch in an instant, turning it into a river. Another one who doesn't fear death. I'll deal with you first. Ji Wuxiang said fiercely. Mount Buzhou ran up, and with a boom, the earth trembled. In the blink of an eye, Mount Buzhou's enormous body rushed in front of the four symbols. Bang, bang, bang. Every punch landed on flesh, and the sound of impact was like thunder. As the two sides fought, the raindrops flew in all directions. When they landed on the ground, they were like cannonballs creating craters. The place had turned into a mess. Azura, come back. Tang Zheng saw that the Azura's yin qi was already dissipating and immediately stopped him from rushing forward. I can still fight, the Azura said stubbornly. No, come back, Tang Zheng ordered. With a thought, the Azura returned to Summer World. Tang Zheng soared into the sky. Once again raising his hidden profound sword, he fought side by side with the four symbols, attacking Mount Buzhou together. The sky darkened. This battle lasted from day to night. When the sky brightened again, it lasted from night to day. There seemed to be no end to it. The rain in the sky continued to fall. The prehistoric heavenly tomb had already been completely destroyed. In fact, the range of their battle had already expanded to other regions of the 10,000 huge mountains. Countless mountain peaks were broken in half. Countless rivers changed their course as a result. Countless large trees disappeared. The few of them did not seem to be tired at all. Ji Wuxiang and Tang Zheng could absorb the power of the stars to replenish their strength. Mount Buzhou and the four symbols did not need to absorb the power of the stars. When their feet landed on the ground, all the power in the earth vein would gather towards them. The rocks and soil outside the four symbols' body were constantly flying under the fists. Not long after, they dissipated, revealing his body. But very quickly, other rocks and soil continued to gather, replenishing his consumption. As for his main body, even in such an intense battle, he was not injured. Similarly, Mount Buzhou's main body was not injured either. Those black rocks possessed divine power and could not be harmed at all. Tang Zheng gradually saw through the clues. Mount Buzhou and the four symbols were all pitch black, and their composition seemed to be very similar. They were all rocks that possessed some kind of divine power. Ji Wuxiang also noticed this, and his gaze aggressively lingered on the four symbols. The four symbols were created from a piece of rock left over from the creation of this world. Could it be that they had some kind of connection or origin with Mount Buzhou? Tang Zheng thought of this point, but Ji Wuxiang did not know the details. He was so anxious that he almost stomped his feet when he saw that Mount Buzhou, whom he had placed his hopes on, could not destroy the four symbols. Mount Buzhou, you possess divine power. How can you only have this little ability? Ji Wuxiang said fiercely. Tang Zheng's eyes gradually lit up. Four symbols, aren't you one with the Tianxia mountain range? Merge with Mount Buzhou and awaken its guardian spirit. Understood. The four symbols seemed to have been stripped of his bones. Seeing Mount Buzhou's fist coming at him, he simply gave up on resisting. The moment the fist struck his chest, he wrapped his hands around Mount Buzhou's fist. A mysterious power surged out, and the air seemed to have stopped. Mount Buzhou and the four symbols were both fixed in place, their bodies releasing a black light at the same time. Ji Wuxiang saw this abnormal scene and immediately realized that the situation was bad. He shouted, "Mount Buzhou, destroy him for me." Mount Buzhou turned a deaf ear to him. The black light on his body became more and more intense, rushing into the sky. This part of the sky seemed to have turned black. Even the rain could not penetrate this layer of black light. Bang! For some reason, Ji Wuxiang actually flew out from the top of Mount Buzhou's head. How can this be? Ji Wuxiang couldn't help but cry out in alarm in midair. Tang Zheng's eyes trembled when he saw this scene. He realized that Ji Wuxiang had been sent flying by Mount Buzhou's divine power. Mount Buzhou's divine power was actually fighting against Ji Wuxiang. What did this mean? The four symbols had taken effect. Tang Zheng slapped his head. He had only just realized this after fighting for so long. He really couldn't see Mount Tai. He impatiently asked, "For symbols, how is it?" The four symbols didn't answer him. His body was shrinking, and the mountain rocks and soil that had been sucked over fell off one by one, revealing his true body. Mount Buzhou's fist seemed to have become one with his body. That fist was actually melting bit by bit. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1562. Mount Buzhou's fist had already disappeared, becoming one with the four symbols. Tang Zheng and Ji Wuxiang both looked at this strange scene, not daring to act blindly without thinking. Although Ji Wuxiang realized that the situation was not good, he was not in a hurry to leave. Mount Buzhou was his last support. If he left, then he would not have the chance to turn things around. Therefore, no matter what, he had to make a final struggle. The black light became more and more intense. In the end, the figures of the four symbols and Mount Buzhou could no longer be seen clearly, only a ball of pitch-black light. This black light traversed heaven and earth, causing people's hearts to tremble. Tang Zheng did not want to continue watching like this. No matter what the final result was, he had to deal with Ji Wuxiang first. When Ji Wuxiang saw Tang Zheng flying over, he quickly retreated. He already knew that he had no support. He was no match for Tang Zheng, so he naturally did not dare to face him head-on. However, How could Tang Zheng let him do as he wished? Sword light flashed, blocking his path. Ji Wuxiang, where do you think you're going? Ji Wuxiang concealed his panicked expression, saying, Who wants to escape? Humph! Is your little four symbols a match for Mount Buzhou? Laughable. Whether or not they are a match, won't we know the answer in a while? Let's take this opportunity to settle our accounts. Tang Zheng said with a cold smile. I have the celestial chess in my hands. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Ji Wuxiang shouted loudly. He could not bear to lose momentum. His large hand reached into the sky. With a whoosh, a light sword once again descended from the sky. The light sword, condensed from the power of the stars, once again appeared in the palm of his hand. He stared at Tang Zheng with bright eyes, saying, Then I'll let you have a taste of the power of the celestial chess. Whoosh! With a flash of sword light, streaks of sword light spread out in all directions like streaks of lightning. With Ji Wuxiang as the center, they danced in an irregular pattern. This part of the world was completely cut into countless pieces by the sword light. Not only the earth, but even the air was no longer whole. As for the clouds in the sky, they were scattered. The rain stopped abruptly and completely disappeared. Tang Zheng let out a long breath of turbid air, raised the hidden mysterious sword, and roared. Heaven and earth merged. A beam of sword light flew towards the 9 heavens, while another beam of sword light landed on the earth. They transformed into yin and yang fishes before merging from the heaven and earth. Bang, bang, bang. Everywhere the yin-yang fish passed, it collided with the countless strands of sword light, creating intense sparks. The sparks were incomparably dazzling, covering the sky as if there were countless resplendent suns in the sky. Time ticked by. Boom! A beam of light, with the 2 people as the center, quickly spread out in all directions. Everywhere it passed, the mountains were destroyed, the grass and trees turned to ash. Everything was razed to the ground. The world suddenly quieted down, as if it was dead silent. There was not the slightest sound. The light did not disappear for a long time. Suddenly, bang, a sound broke the silence. The light was like a pebble falling into the surface of a lake. It rippled and then shattered. Everything became clear again. A flat plain appeared in front of them. There was not a single rise or fall of mountains. The yellow soil had already been turned up from the ground. What entered their eyes was a barren land. A person was lying on the ground, mud splashed all over his body. He looked up at the sky, his eyes flashing with disbelief and despair. He saw a figure lightly floating down from the sky, slowly growing bigger in his eyes. Tang Zheng. Ji Wuxiang shouted with difficulty. This voice was squeezed out from the depths of his throat, revealing countless complex emotions. How can I lose to you? Tang Zheng landed in front of Ji Wuxiang, looking at him calmly, and said, Why can't you lose to me? But I already have the celestial chess. The celestial chess is very powerful, but is my strength that weak? Previously, you were only relying on Mount Buzhou to resist me. Without Mount Buzhou, you have no final support. You will naturally lose. Tang Zheng said calmly. His analysis was very thorough. Mount Buzhou. Ji Wuxiang looked around and saw Mount Buzhou. The light of Mount Buzhou had also completely dissipated. It was unknown when, but it had actually separated from the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols stood in front of Mount Buzhou. They seemed very small, but there was an additional aura on their bodies. This aura was exactly the same as Mount Buzhou. Ji Wuxiang stared straight at Mount Buzhou, his eyes burning with hope as he said, Mount Buzhou, Mount Buzhou. Obviously, he wanted to use Mount Buzhou to rise again. Ji Wuxiang could no longer stand up. He slowly climbed towards Mount Buzhou, the hope in his eyes burning brighter and brighter. Boom! Mount Buzhou moved its legs a bit. Ji Wuxiang wanted nothing more than to climb up. He stretched out his arms, as if he wanted to touch Mount Buzhou. However, Mount Buzhou stopped. Mount Buzhou, why aren't you coming? Ji Wuxiang could no longer crawl and asked with difficulty. Tang Zheng looked at the 4 symbols and Mount Buzhou thoughtfully and said, Ji Wuxiang, Mount Buzhou naturally won't go to you. He is no longer under your control. Is that right, guardian spirit? Yes, he actually wants to control Mount Bujo. What wishful thinking. A voice sounded. It was Mount Bujo's guardian spirit. Ah, who is speaking? Ji Wuxiang looked at Mount Bujo in shock. Although he controlled Mount Bujo, he didn't communicate with the guardian spirit. Naturally, he didn't hear his voice. I am Mount Bujo's guardian spirit. You used the power of the stars to suppress me and control Mount Bujo. You still dare to ask who I am? The guardian spirit angrily asked. Guardian spirit, Ji Wuxiang muttered in a daze. Mount Bujo actually has a guardian spirit. Of course, Mount Bujo is a divine mountain. Naturally, it has a guardian spirit. So what if it's a guardian spirit? It was still suppressed by the power of the stars. Ji Wuxiang said with a sinister expression. The guardian spirit said with shame, Yes, I have to admit that the power of the stars is very strong. However, you never thought that there would be someone in this world who could help me escape from your suppression. You never thought that the four symbols and I were born from the same root. Born from the same root? Ji Wuxiang repeated in disbelief. Yes, we are both divine stones left behind when the world was created. I turned into Mount Bujo, and the four symbols were turned into statues. However, our origins are the same. The guardian spirit said. These words caused Ji Wuxiang to turn pale with fright. His entire body began to tremble. He had calculated everything, but he never considered this point. The four symbols, this one variable, had ruined his meticulous plan. Previously, Tang Zheng had already guessed a bit, but now that he heard the complete explanation, he couldn't suppress the shock in his heart. The four symbols and Mount Bujo were actually formed from divine stones left behind when the world was created. Moreover, they each had their own divinity and function. The four symbols walked step by step in front of Ji Wuxiang and said condescendingly, Ji Wuxiang, you schemed and schemed, but in the end, you failed. This is your fate. However, I still have to thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known that there were others like me. Moreover, we met several times, but we never had the chance to recognize each other. Pooh! Chapter 1563. The four symbols' words and Bujo Mountain's reaction completely extinguished Ji Wuxiang's last strand of hope, which was why his life was gradually fading away. Seeing this, Tang Zheng already understood that Ji Wuxiang was completely finished. Ji Wuxiang's gaze was still firmly locked on a Tang Zheng, unwillingness mixed with resentment as he said, Tang Zheng, I really didn't think that I would lose to you, and lose so thoroughly. Tang Zheng looked at him indifferently and said, There are many things that you didn't think of. Your glory has already passed. Ji Wuxiang's mouth cracked open. His eyes turned as if he was sizing up his surroundings and said, But you didn't think that the battle just now would have completely changed the 10,000 mountains. There is no more heaven and earth spirit chi here. Only the power of the stars is left. From now on, the 10,000 mountains will be a forbidden area for cultivators. Ha! A forbidden area for cultivators. Tang Zheng's head trembled. Only now did he notice this point. Ji Wuxiang was not exaggerating. That battle, just now, was truly too earth-shattering. The heavenly chest drew in too much power of the stars above the 9 heavens. It was not something that a single person could digest. With so much power of the stars, it had already completely changed the 10,000 mountain structure. Even if Tang Zheng used the swallowing the heavens technique to absorb the power of the stars, he might not be able to absorb all of it in a short period of time. Ji Wuxiang, I can't help but admit that you are a genius, but you used your intelligence in the wrong place. Why do you insist on seeing cultivators as your enemy? Can't you coexist peacefully? Of course we can't coexist peacefully. Ji Wuxiang's eyes burned with the flames of hatred. It has already been decided hundreds of years ago. Cultivators and martial artists must become enemies. This is unreasonable. This is also the Azure Dragon Hall's principle. Tang Zheng shook his head. I will prove you wrong. Ha! Let me tell you, that day will never come. The heavenly chess has already merged with this land. It will continuously draw on the power of the stars. this land will become a paradise for martial artists. Regarding the method for martial artists to absorb the power of stars, I have already made it public. The power of the stars is a higher level of existence than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There will be a day when martial artists will completely surpass martial artists, and martial artists will be suppressed and eliminated, completely disappearing from the world. Tang Zheng's heart trembled as he resolutely said, "I won't let this happen." "But you can't stop it. You can't stop heavenly chess." "Really? Although you have changed the celestial chess, I will figure it out. If I die, the secret of the heavenly chess will be brought to my grave by me." "How can you change the heavenly chess?" Ji Wuxiang said proudly, not taking his own death seriously. "You want to take the secret of heavenly chess to your grave? Do you think it's that easy?" Tang Zheng's expression turned vicious. He reached out his hand, and Ji Wuxiang was sucked into Tang Zheng's hand. "What are you doing?" Ji Wuxiang suddenly had a bad premonition and turned pale with fright. Tang Zheng sneered and said, "Of course it's to dig out the secret of the heavenly chess." "No, you can't do that." Ji Wuxiang immediately realized Tang Zheng's method. Soul-searching technique. Ji Wuxiang knew about this ability of the demon race, and it was used by Tang Zheng to the point of perfection. Just now, he only cared about venting the emotions in his heart and didn't think that ending his own life would be the most effective way to preserve the secret. However, he couldn't even end his own life now, because he had already fallen into Tang Zheng's hands. Tang Zheng's eyes exploded with a soul-stirring gaze as he shouted, "Soul-searching technique." The large hand had already covered Ji Wuxiang's head. Ji Wuxiang tried to struggle, but he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. How could he have a chance to struggle? His expression suddenly froze, as if he had been petrified. Then, in the next second, his face revealed a painful expression, and he began to twitch nonstop. Tang Zheng did not hold back. In any case, Ji Wuxiang would not be able to survive. Therefore, he crazily activated his power and used the sky-swallowing technique. This power was extremely terrifying. There were no aftereffects at all. Instead, it directly took Ji Wuxiang's life. The life force in Ji Wuxiang's eyes dissipated bit by bit. His face quickly turned pale, and his pupils dilated. Finally, he stopped twitching and completely calmed down. At this moment, Ji Wuxiang had finished his life. It was brilliant, dazzling, and crazy. Tang Zheng released his hand, and the corpse fell limply to the ground. Tang Zheng's gaze became very complicated. He knew all of Ji Wuxiang's secrets, knew the history of the Azure Dragon Hall, and even knew the schemes of the Azure Dragon Hall's High Lords starting from New Era. Of course, he also knew all of the secrets of the heavenly chess. From now on, his attainments in the heavenly chess would reach the peak of perfection and even surpass Ji Wuxiang. Because he was a cultivator, his horizons were naturally different from Ji Wuxiang's. Therefore, he had fused his and Ji Wuxiang's understanding of the heavenly chess. Of course, he would have different gains. At the same time, Tang Zheng could not help but be convinced by Ji Wuxiang's intelligence and wisdom. This was truly an unprecedented genius. It was truly a huge tragedy for him to reach this step. Ji Wuxiang, you can rest in peace. Although you died in my hands, I will bring the celestial chess to greater heights and let it truly benefit the world. Not only will it benefit cultivators, but it will also benefit cultivators. This can be considered your final contribution to the people of the world. In the future, people will remember you, not because of your sins, but because you created the heavenly chess. If Ji Wuxiang heard these words, who knew how he would feel? Tang Zheng raised his head and looked around. The dense power of the stars enveloped the 100,000 mountains. Moreover, the heavenly chess was still endlessly absorbing the power of the stars from the 9 heavens. Even if it was Tang Zheng who had comprehended the true essence of the heavenly chess, he could not stop all of this. This was a trap that Ji Wuxiang had laid down by exhausting his own life. From now on, this will be the paradise of all martial artists in the world. However, these martial artists will not see cultivators as their mortal enemies. I will change their views. Tang Zheng thought silently. It was not easy to do this, because although Ji Wuxiang had died, he had left behind many people who were loyal to him and believed in his ideals. To change the views of these people was easier said than done. Ding ding, Wu. And Li Xiaotian will play an important role in this operation. Tang Zheng had an idea. He was a cultivator, so he would be ostracized by many martial artists. They would even see him as their mortal enemy. But these people were different. They were originally martial artists with unlimited potential. Tang Zheng believed that they were up to the task. In fact, he had already seen through the open strife and the veiled struggle between these women. There were strong and weak among them, but he had no way to change this situation for the time being. But from now on, it would be different. These three people would share a lot of his burden. He believed that they would definitely enjoy it and do great things. Chapter 1564. The Creation of Heaven and Earth. Tang Zheng's thoughts were immediately pulled back as he looked at the four symbols in surprise. The four symbols nodded heavily. Yes, I didn't know the answer to the question you asked me before, but now I can answer you. Why? Tang Zheng looked deeply at the four symbols in Mount Buzhou as he asked thoughtfully. Master, I'm sure you've already guessed a thing or two. Indeed, this is related to Mount Buzhou. As I said just now, he and I were originally born from the same root, and we are both divine stones left behind when heaven and earth were created. Originally, we didn't know what happened when heaven and earth were created, but after we merged with each other, some vague memory fragments appeared. The four symbols said, "Is this true?" Tang Zheng was shocked. The four symbols nodded heavily as he looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. Then tell me quickly what happened when heaven and earth were created. Tang Zheng urged. This involved the origin of the world and might give him a lot of new inspiration. At first, this world was just a piece of chaos. Suddenly, a ray of light streaked across, and this piece of chaos exploded. The clear air rose and turned into the sky, while the turbid air fell and turned into the earth. This was how this world was formed. However, this didn't last for long. The earth and sky kept moving closer to each other, as if there were signs of returning to the original state of chaos. The four symbols explained tirelessly. A ray of light suddenly rose from Mount Buzhou. These lights and shadows changed and actually gave birth to the scene described by the four symbols. Tang Zheng immediately looked at this changing scene dumbfoundedly, as if he was watching a movie. He couldn't help but hold his breath. He hadn't felt this kind of emotion in a long time. Shock from the bottom of his heart. That ray of light split the chaos, and the scene of the explosion made his heart tremble. Then he saw the formation of heaven and earth. He didn't even blink for fear of missing a detail. Looking at the sky and earth slowly moving closer to each other, Tang Zheng's heart couldn't help but tighten. Could it be that the newly formed heaven and earth were really going to turn into chaos again? Wouldn't that be a waste of all their previous efforts? The four symbols also looked at the scene in the sky. Although he already knew what had happened, he was still deeply shocked when he saw this scene again. Heaven and earth were getting closer and closer to each other. Coincidentally, at this time, a divine stone flew in from the outer space and blocked the space between heaven and earth. This divine stone contained boundless divine power. Heaven and earth could no longer approach each other, and this state was forever maintained. With the passage of time, the heavens and earth gradually stabilized, and this world was truly formed. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that the heaven and earth were actually formed in this way. The divine stone was obviously taller than Mount Buzhou, supporting the heaven and earth. Now, although Mount Buzhou was very tall, it had not truly reached the state of being able to support the heavens and earth. After experiencing countless years, the Godstone seemed to have reached its limit. When the heavens and earth truly stabilized, its mission was completed, and it exploded. Boom! The divine sense and the soundless image exploded, turning into a mass of pitch-black light that blotted out the sky and the sun. It was as if the world had turned into night. Although it was silent, Tang Zheng in the audience heard a loud sound that he had never heard before. It was as if his heart had exploded. After the light dissipated, there was one more mountain in this world, Mount Buzhou. The four symbols made the final conclusion. The illusion also froze at this moment. A towering mountain that reached the clouds appeared between heaven and earth, and it was exactly the same as Mount Buzhou. So Mount Buzhou was actually formed after the Godstone exploded. That four symbols, are you also a part of the Godstone after it exploded? Tang Jing finally understood the whole story. The four symbols nodded. Master, you're right. That's exactly the case. Tang Zheng stared at the last scene, deep in thought. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. His gaze moved back and forth between Mount Buzhou and the four symbols. He pondered for a long time before finally asking. After that explosion, only the two of you were left of the divine stone that supported the heavens and earth. The four symbols did not answer. Instead, it revealed a suspicious expression and looked at Mount Buzhou. Mount Buzhou shook its head slightly. The four symbols then said, "We don't know either." Tang Zheng scratched his head and thought hard. In the end, he slapped his thigh and said firmly, "Judging from the size of the Godstone and the size of the two of you, I'm afraid that after the explosion, the two of you were not the only remnants of the Godstone." The four symbols was pleasantly surprised. "So you're saying that there are others of our kind?" "I'm pretty sure that's the case." Tang Zheng answered without hesitation. "Then we must find the remaining parts." The four symbols said impatiently. Mount Buzhou also nodded hurriedly, as if it was as anxious as the four symbols. Tang Zheng looked at them curiously and asked, "Why are you so anxious?" "Because we believe that once we find the remaining parts, we'll be able to see more of the scenes from back then and resolve the doubts in our hearts." "I see. All these scenes were produced when they merged with each other. If they merged with other parts, it was possible that new scenes would appear. That was of great significance to understanding the origin of the world. Then where do we find these remnants of consciousness?" Tang Zheng was at his wit's end. "We don't know either." The four symbols shook its head regretfully. After muttering to itself for a long time, it said, "Master, I'm sure you want to know who was the one behind the light that split the chaos and the Godstone that flew from the sky, right?" Tang Zheng's heart trembled. The four symbols had guessed his thoughts. From the moment he saw the scene in the sky, he had this question in his heart. All of this was orchestrated by someone. Then who was the orchestrator? The creator? To the heaven realm. Wasn't he the creator? The heavenly Tao? When he thought of the mysterious heavenly Tao, his heart hung in suspense. If the heavenly Tao was the creator, it was possible. But since it was the creator, why did it have to rely on the Emperor of Heaven and Yin Qingyi to realize its own will? Didn't the creator have the ability to control the world they created at will? Just like how he could control the heaven realm at will, this was just a matter of a thought. Why did the heavenly Tao have to go through so much trouble? Therefore, this point didn't make sense. There were still many unsolved mysteries. The four symbols stared at Tang Zheng and said, "Once we find the remaining Godstones, we can reconstruct the scene at that time more clearly. We might be able to find out who was the mastermind behind all of this. Perhaps we'll be able to understand everything that happened later. For example, where did the heaven and earth mystic stone come from? How was the stairway to heaven formed?" The questions thrown out by the four symbols were like heavy bombs, causing a huge uproar in Tang Zheng's head. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about these questions, but these questions involved the origin of the world. That was too long ago. He didn't have the energy to think about it all, and never thought that he would have the opportunity to know all of this one day. Chapter 1565. The curtain of the origin of the world slowly opened in front of Tang Zheng. He could not wait to know the secret, so he asked, "Where are the remaining Godstones?" The four symbols and Buzhou Mountain looked at each other and shook their heads. "We don't know either." Tang Zheng was greatly disappointed. He thought that there would at least be some clues, and it would be easy to follow the map. He did not expect that there would not even be a clue. This vast world was so big. Where could he find the Godstones? One had to know that they did not even know the size of the Godstones. They could be anywhere in the valley, in the deep sea, or even underground. There was a limit to human strength. It was impossible to truly search every corner of the world. Therefore, this was an unrealistic wish. Then we can only rely on luck. Tang Zheng sighed. He did not want to continue forcing it. This kind of thing cannot be forced. Master, other than that, I have some other gains. The four symbols said again. Tang Zheng immediately stared at him, looking like he was all ears. The four symbols continued. Ever since the explosion of the Godstone, I have been drifting in the world, experiencing wind and rain. One day, a tribe suddenly found me and took me back. They worshipped me day and night, treating me as a god. Tang Zheng thought for a moment before lightly nodding his head. The four symbols looked at him and said, Master, you must have guessed that this tribe was the witch tribe. At that time, it was still a primitive society. The witch tribe had already existed since then. After many years, the witch tribe grew stronger day by day. They gradually used all kinds of stone tools to polish me. After thousands of years, they finally polished me into 4 parts, which are the 4 symbols venerables. I have been worshipped by them as their guardian god for generations. The witch tribe created you. Tang Zheng exclaimed. This was very similar to his previous estimation. He thought that the 4 symbols venerables came from an extremely powerful expert. He did not expect that it came from such a simple witch tribe. 1,000 years. How many generations had it taken for them to complete this magnificent feat? The witch tribe's courage and perseverance were admirable. Another day, a goddess descended from the heavens and taught the witch tribe magical powers. From then on, the witch tribe walked the path of true power, defeating other tribes and growing stronger. Goddess from the heavens? Who is she? Tang Zheng immediately realized the key point. He had never heard of the goddess before. The 4 symbols nodded at Tang Zheng and said, Master, this goddess is none other than the Empress of the Heavens beyond Heaven's imperial family, Xiao Bai's mother. It's her. Tang Zheng was suddenly enlightened. When the Empress passed through the space door and descended to this world, he did not expect that she would be in human form. Actually, it made sense when he thought about it. The royal family had to cultivate to a certain level before they could transform into humans. The Empress naturally had this ability. Even after passing through the spatial door, she still had this ability. However, why were there almost no legends about the goddess in the sorcerer tribe? Instead, there were more legends about the holy beasts. Xiao Bai is a holy beast, so the goddess is naturally a holy beast as well. It's just a different form. Tang Zheng thought for a while and barely found an answer. Master, the ancients worshipped the strong. The more ferocious one was, the more they would be worshipped. Therefore, when the goddess fought with the other tribes, she would transform into the form of a holy beast. This was enough to intimidate the enemy and motivate the sorcerer tribe warriors. The 4 symbols explained. Tang Zheng was shocked. So there was this reason. It seemed that the sorcerer tribe's legends had their reasons. The Empress often looked at people in the form of a holy beast, so the sorcerer tribe would naturally remember this form. Perhaps the sorcerer tribe also liked this form of a holy beast, so they wrote about it. Later on, the goddess died after giving birth to an egg. She was heavily injured in the heavens beyond heaven in her early years, leaving behind sequelae. She persisted until she gave birth to her offspring. Only then did she close her eyes. The 4 symbols said bluntly, without much emotion. However, Tang Zheng could not do this. He was extremely shocked and could not calm down for a long time. If Xiaobai knew about this, he would definitely be very excited. The next time he went to the heavens beyond heaven, he would definitely tell him about his mother's story. This was something he had the right to know. These are the memories that were stimulated after I merged with Mount Buzhou. I don't know anything else. The 4 symbols said. Tang Zheng nodded his head. This is already enough. It has answered many of my questions. All right. You said that the goddess taught the witch clan the primal chaos Vajra spell? Yes, it's the primal chaos Vajra spell. This ability seems to be tailor-made for the witch clan. After the witch clan cultivated the primal chaos Vajra spell, they were invincible and defeated many strong enemies. The primal chaos Vajra spell was so powerful, the elders and the others had yet to reach their peak state. If they wanted to recreate the Witch Clan's former glory, the Witch Clan still had a long way to go. When he returned this time, he had to find the elders of the Witch Clan to talk about that period of history in detail. The history of the Witch Clan was not as clear and concise as the four symbols description. Master, Ji Wuxiang is already dead. Where are we going now? The four symbols asked. Back to southern Yunnan. Although Ji Wuxiang was dead, he still had many followers under him. Mu Hongyin and the others were still in southern Yunnan, so he did not know if they were lucky or not. Therefore, he should hurry back and meet up with them as soon as possible. But just as this thought flashed through his mind, his heart jumped, and he immediately stopped in his tracks, saying, "Wait a moment." Then his thoughts sank into the heavenly book. The heavenly book actually shone brightly, and the colorful light was too much for the eyes to take in. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked. He did not touch the heavenly book, so why would the heavenly book have such a huge reaction? Master, what's wrong? The four symbols asked anxiously. Tang Zheng seemed to have been petrified and did not answer him. The four symbols immediately realized that he must have entered some kind of mysterious state, so they guarded in front of him, guarding against any possible danger. Tang Zheng was immersed in the heavenly book. In the past, his comprehension of the heavenly book was not too deep, and he had inherited Fushi's comprehension of the heavenly book. Of course, this could not be compared to the Emperor of Heaven. After all, he had spent his entire life studying and comprehending the heavenly book. At this moment, he was immersed in the heavenly book, and he actually felt like a fish in water. Many of the essence of the heavenly way slowly unfolded in front of him and quickly integrated into his body and mind. How could this be? He was shocked. His eyes were wide open, and he really looked like a wooden person. He could not help but be surprised. After all, the heavenly way and Yin Xingyi were closely related, and it was impossible to determine whether they were friends or enemies. At this critical juncture, he actually miraculously comprehended more profound things in the heavenly book and had a new understanding of the heavenly way. Facing all this, how could he not be surprised? What was the cause of all these changes? I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and peace. Because there are too many things going on at home, in the last few days of this month, this book will temporarily update a chapter every day. Please forgive me. After these few days, things will be settled, and the updates will resume as usual. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1566. The mysteries of the heavenly book appeared automatically. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and suppressed his astonishment. He quickly adjusted his state of mind and comprehended the essence of the heavenly book. As time passed, the four symbols and Mount Buzhou stared at him without blinking. Swoosh! After a long while, Tang Zheng's eyes shone with a terrifying light. Then, he retreated from that mysterious realm. His expression was solemn, and he seemed to be deep in thought. A mysterious veil was slowly pulled away in front of him. So that's how it is. All of this is because I read and listened to the details of the origin of the world. It seemed to contain some kind of profound principle, and then it matched with the heavenly book. The heavenly way naturally revealed itself, and I easily comprehended the essence of it. He nodded heavily and confirmed his speculation. Didn't this mean that the heavenly book or the heavenly way had some kind of mysterious connection with the origin of the world and was successfully stimulated? Master, what's wrong? The four symbols saw that he had returned to normal and hurriedly asked. Tang Zheng spoke of his experience and conjecture. The four symbols and Mount Buzhou muttered to themselves at the same time. The guardian spirit of Mount Buzhou said, "Your conjecture is indeed reasonable. Perhaps in the future when we see more scenes, the answer will naturally surface." Master, since you've comprehended a part of the heavenly book and comprehended the essence of the heavenly way, then compared to Yin Xingyi, who has a deeper understanding of the heavenly way? The four symbols asked curiously. He knew that Yin Xingyi had always been a problem that Tang Zheng was worried about. Umo revealed a bitter smile and said, "It's not as easy as you make it out to be. Yin Xingyi is the one chosen by the heavenly way. Naturally, her understanding of the heavenly way is unparalleled. That's fine. If you understand more of the heavenly way, it'll be easier to deal with Yin Xingyi in the future. The four symbols' tone changed. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, agreed with this point. He was worried about Mu Hongyin and was in a hurry to leave the 100,000 mountains. He said directly, "For symbols, we'll be leaving first. Mount Buzhou, what are your plans?" If Buzhou Shan wanted to leave, then he would put him in a Sumeru world. The 100,000 great mountains are my roots, so of course I will stay. This place gave birth to countless people. Now that it has been destroyed, it will regain its former glory in the future. Buzhou Shan said. He had no intention of leaving. Tang Zheng understood his thoughts and did not force him. He hurriedly bid farewell to Buzhou Mountain with the four symbols and rode the somersault cloud toward the city in Dianan. Tang Zheng had used the soul-searching technique on Ji Wuxiang, so he knew his troop arrangement like the back of his hand. As Tang Zheng had expected, Ji Wuxiang had indeed arranged two centers. One was the 100,000 mountains, and the other was Dianan City. The celestial chess pieces were set up in both places. They helped each other and supported the celestial chess pieces above Dianan and the 100,000 mountains. Yi Xuanji was the one in charge of the city. With Granny Li dead and Long Xianyuan crippled, only Yi Xuanji could be of use. Although there were other martial artists who joined Ji Wuxiang, no one could be compared to Yi Xuanji in terms of vision, methods, or experience. After all, Yi Xuanji was once the head of the Ye family. His ability was unquestionable. From afar, Tang Zheng noticed that the qi in the city had changed. It was not affected by the celestial chess of the 100,000 mountains, but the celestial chess set up in this place had changed. Under the celestial chess, no one can escape my detection. UMO had already become the new master of the celestial chess. After a simple experiment, he could already control the celestial chess with ease. As a result, his mind moved, and the huge Dianan was completely imprinted in his mind. Every detail was vivid and lifelike, like a vivid model. Suddenly, he frowned and said with a pale face, "Hong Yin is in danger." Whoosh! The somersault cloud turned into an afterimage and swooped down from the sky, heading straight to a corner of the city. The ordinary people in Dianan were already used to seeing people flying around in the sky. Therefore, even if they saw a huge cloud flying down, they were not surprised at all. Ever since Ji Wuxiang took complete control of Dianan, it became a country within a country. Martial artists no longer avoided the ordinary people. They came and went, and even flew in the sky. Humans had a strong ability to accept things. Other than the initial shock and discomfort, they gradually got used to it. On the contrary, if they did not see people flying around in the sky every day, they would find it strange. It's the thundercloud beast. The four symbols pointed at a huge creature not far away. The thundercloud beast actually fell to the ground, and its body was covered with a layer of intertwined light. The thundercloud beast kept struggling and releasing lightning, but could not completely break free from the big net. Tang Zheng's head sank. The thundercloud beast's misfortune reflected the strength of the martial artists in Dianan City. Thundercloud beast, I'm here to save you. The four symbols could not hold back anymore. They roared and descended from the sky. The martial artists also saw the somersault cloud. They roared and soared into the sky, using all kinds of weapons to attack the four symbols. The four symbols were fearless, as if they did not see anything. They rushed into the weapons that filled the sky. Ping, ping, ping. The four beasts were completely unharmed, but the weapons were completely destroyed. They broke into pieces, and pieces fell from the sky like a fairy scattering flowers. Boom! The four symbols' feet landed on the ground, and the earth trembled. Those with weaker cultivation were directly sent flying into the air by the huge force. Who dares to hurt the thundercloud beast? The four symbols grabbed the big net on the thundercloud beast and tore it with both hands. Even the reinforced iron bones could not withstand this force. Whoosh! The big net was torn into pieces. The thundercloud beast broke free and flapped its wings. A strong wind blew, and the martial artists swayed left and right. They could not resist at all. The thundercloud beast gradually rose into the sky, and its body rapidly grew. In a short while, it became a huge creature, blocking the sun in the sky. Everyone only felt darkness above their heads, and then it lit up again. Lightning. The thundercloud beast released lightning. A thick bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Just as it was about to hit the ground, the lightning changed again, turning into thousands of tiny electric snakes, covering every corner and every martial artist. Pa pa pa. Immediately, the sound of electric shocks rose and fell one after another, and a thick burnt smell filled the air. Some of the stronger martial artists were able to withstand the electric shock at first, but as more and more electric snakes wrapped around their bodies, no one could withstand it anymore. They fell to the ground one after another, emitting black smoke and twitching incessantly. Apart from the four symbols who were still standing unscathed, no one else was left standing. Chapter 1567. Tang Zheng stood on the somersault cloud and looked down at the messy battlefield. Not a single enemy could stand up. However, Mu Hongyin and Nana were not here. The thunder cloud beast flew in front of Tang Zheng and said guiltily, "Master, this is my dereliction of duty. I did not protect the two of them well." "What exactly happened?" Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice. "We tried to destroy the celestial chess, but the enemy was too cunning. Many of them swarmed out. We destroyed a portion of the celestial chess, but the enemy was fierce, so we could only retreat. Later, Nana wanted to go back to the Long family to take a look. When we arrived at the Long family met Long Xianyuan. Both sides had a good chat, but we did not expect Long Xianyuan to leak the news. The enemy swarmed over and surrounded us. We finally broke through the encirclement, but we were separated. In the end, I was accidentally caught in the net." The thundercloud beast roughly explained the whole story in a few words, and its eyes were filled with guilt. "Master, please punish me. This is all my fault," the thundercloud beast said dejectedly. Tang Zheng patted its head and said, "Thundercloud beast, it's not your fault. I didn't think it through. I didn't expect Ji Wuxian's power to be so strong. This Dianan is like a piece of iron. You guys took the risk, and the danger was far beyond my expectations. Master, we must save them as soon as possible," the thundercloud beast said impatiently, very concerned about the safety of the mother and daughter. "Dianan is so big. Why don't we split up and find them faster?" Tang Zheng shook his head gently. "There's no need to split up. I know where they are." In the celestial chess, everything was under Tang Zheng's control. "For symbols, let's go." For symbols stomped heavily on the ground, and the ground quickly collapsed, turning into a huge pit. Then, he soared into the sky and landed on the somersault cloud. Whiz! The somersault cloud whizzed away. The thundercloud beast flapped its wings, and its huge body covered the sky. Wherever it passed, the sunlight in the sky was blocked. The people on the ground raised their heads and looked at this huge creature in shock. It was an eye-opener. The Long family's manor had long lost its former glory. The manor with green hills and clear waters had been desolate for a long time. But today, the manor was bustling again, and there was a murderous intent hidden in the dark. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew from the horizon. A white cloud and a huge object flew over and stopped above the manor. The thundercloud beast flapped its wings, and a gust of wind descended from the sky, wreaking havoc in the manor. The water in the clear lake was directly swept up and soared into the sky, turning into a tornado. However, this tornado was formed by the lake water, and its power was exceptionally vast, so much so that it was even terrifying. Whoosh! Whoosh! More than a dozen martial artists soared into the sky, trying to attack. Boom! The water tornadoes moved quickly, wrapping around these martial artists. They didn't even have time to scream before they were sucked into the tornadoes. Not long after, they were flung out and fell to the ground, never to get up again. "Master, are they in the manor?" The thundercloud beast asked curiously. Just now, they had already broken through the encirclement and left the manor. Could it be that they were captured again? Tang Zheng nodded. "This manor is not simple. It's very strange. I can feel their aura in the manor, but their exact location is very vague." The four symbols knew that Tang Zheng had mastered celestial chess, but even he couldn't find the exact location of the mother and daughter. Obviously, this was very strange. Tang Zheng wasn't surprised and explained the reason. Ji Wuxiang taught a part of the secrets of celestial chess to Yi Xuanji so that he could replace Ji Wuxiang to complete a lot of work and take charge of the work in Dianan City. So, Yi Xuanji must have done something to avoid my detection. Yi Xuanji is so powerful? The four symbols was very surprised. Back then, if it wasn't for Tang Zheng's life continuing pill, Yi Xuanji would have died long ago. Among the major families, other than the Yin family, Yi Xuanji had suffered many losses along the way. Not only did the Ye family fall apart, even his descendants either died or betrayed him. However, he became the person that Ji Wuxiang relied on the most. One had to admit that he was powerful. No matter how powerful he is no longer a concern. Ji Wuxiang is dead, so he has no one to rely on. He is just a rootless duckweed. Tang Zheng didn't take it to heart at all and said indifferently, "Master is right. Without Ji Wuxiang, the others are all shrimp soldiers and crab generals. There's no need to worry about them." The thundercloud beast agreed. "Master, you only need to watch the battle. I will go down and turn the place upside down to find them." The thundercloud beast was ready to make up for its mistakes. "I will go too." The four symbols didn't decline. "Go." Tang Zheng nodded slightly and agreed. Now that he was in control of the situation, he couldn't do everything himself. Sometimes he would let his subordinates handle it and give them space to grow. Whoosh! A gust of wind descended from the sky as the thundercloud beast dived down like a fighter jet. Before it landed, the lightning bolts had already flown out like cannonballs, landing on the ground and exploding with a loud bang, filling the sky with dust. The four symbols were simple and violent. After falling from the sky, the ground collapsed and a hole the size of a football field appeared. Martial artists rushed out from all directions and attacked the four symbols with all kinds of weapons. The four divine beasts leaped out of the crater, and a spear flew toward him. He reached out with his large hand, and the spear was caught in his hand. The terrifying forward momentum vanished, and he turned the spear around. Whoosh! The long spear flew out and pierced a martial artist's chest. The martial artist flew back and crashed into another martial artist. The long spear's momentum didn't decrease. In the blink of an eye, several martial artists were skewered by the long spear like a stick of candied haws. The way the four symbols and the thundercloud beast appeared was unstoppable. However, the martial artists weren't afraid at all and rushed forward one after another. Tang Zheng looked at this scene and couldn't help but sigh. He didn't know what method Ji Wuxiang had used, but he was actually able to twist the scattered cultivators into a single rope. It was truly amazing that all of them were of the same mind. In front of absolute strength, there was no qualitative change in numbers. The thundercloud beast and the four symbols were invincible. Everywhere they passed, martial artists fell. The manor was in a complete mess, riddled with holes. Boom! With a loud bang, a villa was hit by the thundercloud beast's wings and fell apart like tofu, turning into ruins. The fists of the four beasts landed on a wall, and the wall immediately cracked open. The cracks extended like a spider web, and another building collapsed with a loud bang. The Dianan Long family spent hundreds of years to build this huge paradise-like manor. It was gradually destroyed in the hands of the thundercloud beast and the four symbols. Tang Zheng didn't stop him. Long Xinyuan didn't understand the situation and didn't care about his family. He informed the enemy that he was already an enemy. The Long family's manor was turned upside down, and all the villas were destroyed. However, there was still no sign of Mu Hongyan and Nana. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. His senses were definitely not wrong. They were in this area. Chapter 1568. Tang Zheng floated in the air, his clothes fluttering in the wind. He stretched out his hands and spread his fingers as he roared, "Let's see how you hide." Boom! With a loud bang, the soil seemed to have a life of its own as it soared into the sky. The ground seemed to have been plowed. Everything underground was overturned, and there was nowhere to hide. The four symbols and the thundercloud beast flew into the air and stopped attacking. They watched Tang Zheng make his move, their eyes shining. They had no way of finding the hiding fellows, but these fellows had no way of hiding from their master. Boom! 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 The ground was completely hollowed out, and the sky and earth seemed to have switched places. The sky was full of dust, and the ground turned into a huge pit. This pit was the size of dozens of football fields. In other words, the huge manor was completely hollowed out and flew into the air, revealing the true appearance of the underground. A few pairs of eyes looked at the true appearance of the underground and immediately widened their eyes in surprise. A huge dome was quietly hiding. If all the soil had not flown into the air, it would be impossible to discover that there was another world underground. This was not as simple as digging 3 feet into the ground. It was more than 100 meters deep. Then, wouldn't the underground dome be hundreds or even thousands of meters deep? How could such a huge project be completed without anyone noticing? In the past, Tang Zheng did not notice anything when he came here. Even he did not notice anything just now. However, he believed in his intuition, so he used his great ability to turn the manor upside down. Only then did he finally notice something. Tang Zheng sneered and said, "Let's see how you hide now." He floated toward the dome, and the 4 symbols and the thundercloud beast followed closely behind. As for the soil in the sky, it was still floating, as if it was completely supported by a mysterious force. There was no way for it to fall down. Tang Zheng landed on the dome, but it was silent and did not move. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he said meaningfully, "Looks like you still want to play hide and seek. But can you still hide?" "Master, I'll force them out." The 4 symbols volunteered. After saying that, Shan Tue stomped down. Bang! Debris flew everywhere, and a huge hole appeared. Whoosh! A beam of cold light shot out from the cave and hit the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols was not injured, but the huge force made him stagger and fall to the ground. This power actually caused the 4 symbols to fall to the ground, which showed how terrifying this power was. However, even so, the 4 symbols were not damaged at all. Lightning. The thundercloud beast quickly rushed forward. A bolt of lightning shot out from its body and disappeared into the cave. Crackle. A series of explosions came from the dome, but still no one escaped. "Is it that satisfying to be a coward?" Tang Zheng said disdainfully as he stomped on the dome. Gotcha! The cracks started from his feet and spread in all directions. Soon they were filled with cracks. Clang! The dome shattered, but the fragments did not fall down. Instead, as if they had escaped the gravitational pull of the Earth's core, they slowly flew into the air. Everything under the dome was displayed in broad daylight. The group of people raised their heads and looked up in horror, which happened to fall into the eyes of a few people. Tang Zheng's eyes were like torches as he locked onto his target in the crowd. "Hongyan, Nana." Tang Zheng blurted out. "Tang Zheng, brother." Mu Hongyan and Nana's eyes lit up as they looked at Tang Zheng in surprise. Nana still had tears at the corner of her mouth. She wiped the corner of her eyes, pouted, and shouted with grievance, "Brother, you finally came to save us." Tang Zheng's face immediately became gloomy as he stared at the group of people with a gaze like lightning. Yi Xuanji, Long Xianyuan. The 2 of them stood beside Mu Hongyan and Nana. Yi Xuanji was in high spirits, as if he was 10 years younger, while Long Xianyuan was obviously much older, as if he was an old man in his 80s. After Long Xuanyuan's dantian was shattered, he no longer had any martial arts. His spirit and qi had completely declined, and he was like a walking corpse. However, the return of Mu Hongyan and Nana allowed him to regain his vitality, as if he had found his goal in life again. He was very clear about the importance of these two people to Tang Zheng, and naturally, they were also important to Ji Wuxiang. Therefore, Long Xianyuan did not hesitate to ignore the years of kinship and reported to Yi Xuanji, helping Yi Xuanji detain the two of them. Long Xuanyuan's goal was clear. He was unwilling to fail, and tried to use the method of betraying his family in exchange for Ji Wuxiang's trust. He believed that Ji Wuxiang would definitely have a way to let him be reborn. During this period of time, Ji Wuxiang's various methods could be said to be miraculous, causing a deep shock in Long Xuanyuan's heart. Therefore, he had an almost blind worship for Ji Wuxiang, believing that he was invincible or even omnipotent. However, he did not expect the situation to change so quickly. Not long after he detained Mu Hongyan and her daughter, Tang Zheng actually came knocking on his door. The Long family's 100-year-old manor was destroyed in an instant. He did not have the time to feel heartache, nor did he feel heartache. Without martial arts, what was the use of this manor? Without a successor, the Long family was destined to decline. He might as well use everything to take a gamble. Thus, he led many people to hide in the underground dome. This was a fortress that the ancestors of the Long family had spent decades building. Back then, it was to avoid a nuclear war, so one could imagine how sturdy it was. Furthermore, the materials used to build it were very special, which could isolate it from the outside world. Furthermore, it was deep underground, which increased the difficulty of exploration. It was precisely because of this reason that even though Tang Zheng controlled the celestial chess, he did not completely investigate the situation underground. Looking at Tang Zheng standing in the air, that dazzling gaze made Long Xuanyuan's heart jump to his throat. "Let them go," Tang Zheng roared, like a thunderbolt in the clear sky. The surrounding warriors seemed to be under great pressure and retreated in all directions like a tide. Bang! Long Xuanyuan's legs went soft, and he directly knelt on the ground. He no longer had any martial arts, so how could he resist such pressure? His face was as pale as white paper, and he could not raise his head. Only Xuanji was still bitterly holding on, and did not fall down for the time being. However, his legs were already trembling nonstop, and he could fall down at any time. Yi Xuanji clenched his teeth and said with difficulty, "Tang Zheng, don't be arrogant. The Lord will be back soon, and at that time, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings." "Ji Wuxiang? Are you still counting on him? Let me tell you, he is already dead, and this celestial chess has already fallen into my hands." Tang Zheng sneered and said straightforwardly, "Impossible." Yi Xuanji's face changed greatly, and he screamed in shock. "The Lord has supreme divine abilities. How could he lose to you?" Tang Zheng shook his head. He was helpless against Yi Xuanji's stubbornness, and said, "Whether you believe it or not, you can't change this result. Whether you let them go or not, it's not up to you." Pausing for a moment, Tang Zheng sternly berated, "Go to the side." With a wave of his hand, Yi Xuanji was sent flying. He did not even have the chance to resist. This was the power of the celestial chess. Under the celestial chess, every blade of grass and every tree was under Tang Zheng's control. Not to mention Yi Xuanji, even if it was an even stronger expert, Tang Zheng was not afraid at all. Chapter 1569. Yi Xuanji flew to the side, and no one could stop Tang Zheng's footsteps. He landed in front of the mother and daughter, while Long Xianyuan knelt at the side, not even having the strength to get up. "How are the two of you?" Tang Zheng hurriedly held Mu Hongyan's hand with one hand and Nana with the other, and asked with concern. Mu Hongyan did not care about her shyness, tightly held his hand, and excitedly nodded. "We are all fine, just—" She looked at Long Xianyuan on the ground, then touched her daughter's head and said, "It's just that Nana suffered quite a bit of shock." Tang Zheng thought for a moment and immediately understood what was going on. For his own selfish interests, Long Xianyuan actually disregarded his family. This was especially harmful to the innocent and kind Nana, and it could be seen from the tears at the corner of her eyes. His heart trembled, and he stared at Long Xianyuan with a gaze as sharp as a knife, and said, "Long Xianyuan, are you still worthy of being her grandfather?" As Tang Zheng's voice increased, Long Xianyuan seemed to be seized by a terrifying force and slowly flew up from the ground, gasping for breath like a cow, and his face was pale. Grandpa, seeing this, Nanan turned pale with fright and screamed. Nana! Mu Hongyan hurriedly hugged her agitated daughter. The pain in her eyes was obvious. Even now, Nana was still so concerned about Long Xianyuan. A child's heart did not have so many dark things, only the purest of kinship. However, Long Xianyuan did not value this kinship at all, so Mu Hongyan was also heartbroken and did not plead for Long Xianyuan at all. Long Xianyuan knew that he could not escape this calamity and fiercely stared at Tang Zheng, gritted his teeth, and said, Tang Zheng, if you want to kill me, then kill me. The Long family was destroyed by your hands, especially the mother and daughter who were traitors of the Long family. I, Long Xianyuan, am ashamed to face my ancestors, and the Long family was destroyed just like that. Even at death's door, you still refuse to wake up. The Long family was not destroyed by them, but by you. As the patriarch of the Long family, you didn't even protect your own family and loved ones, and even betrayed them. Is there a need for such a Long family to exist? Tang Zheng asked disdainfully. Long Xianyuan was stunned. He didn't know how to answer, but soon he shook his head and shouted stubbornly, No, it wasn't me. It was them who destroyed the Long family. It was them. His expression was ferocious, as if he couldn't wait to kill the mother and daughter. Mu Hongyan stared blankly at him, tears flowing from her eyes. Her heart was in extreme pain as she choked out, I didn't expect you to say that about us. Not to mention that I have worked hard in your Long family for so many years. Not only have I been bullied and suppressed, but I also have to support the Long family. Nana is your biological granddaughter. She has always treated you as her most respected relative, but you said this to her. She's still a child. How sad will she be? You are too heartless. In the past, I have never complained about the Long family, and I have never complained about you. I now realize that I was too naive. Her tears finished hanging on her cheeks. Nanan also began to cry as she tightly hugged Mu Hongyan. She sobbed and said, Mommy, don't cry. In the future, Nanan will definitely be obedient and protect Mommy. Mu Hongyan also hugged her daughter tightly, wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes, and then looked at Long Xianyuan. Long Xianyuan looked at her with a faint fear in his eyes. Suddenly, Mu Hongyan said firmly, If you are not benevolent, then I don't need to talk about kinship with you, because you don't have this basic quality. Long Xianyuan, from today onwards, we mother and daughter have cut off all ties with the Long family. From now on, we have no relationship with the Long family. Mu Hongyan clenched her teeth to have the strength to finish speaking. After speaking, she felt her entire body relax, as if a large stone had been lifted from the bottom of her heart. These words were like a bolt of lightning that streaked across the bottom of Long Xianyuan's heart, and he was instantly stunned. Mu Hongyan had never refuted him, and had always been resigned to it. But now, she actually dared to say such things to him, and he was deeply shocked. For a moment, he couldn't react. Tang Zheng didn't say a word, and quietly watched Mu Hongyan explode. She had too many things in her heart. If she didn't explode, not only would it hurt her body and mind, it would also have a huge impact and hidden danger on her future cultivation. Of course, he couldn't just sit back and watch. He might as well let her explode in one go and solve all the problems left behind by history. Tang Zheng gently hugged her, like a peaceful harbor, giving Mu Hongyan a great sense of security. She took the opportunity to lean on Tang Zheng's chest, ignoring the gazes of others. When Long Xianyuan saw this scene, he seemed to have been greatly stimulated. He struggled fiercely and stretched out his hands to grab the mother and daughter. However, he was firmly bound by Tang Zheng's power and couldn't struggle at all. He could only scream hysterically, If you want to leave the Long family, you have to die. No, even if you die, you can't. You were born as a member of the Long family, and you will die as a ghost of the Long family. Mother, I'm scared. Nana saw this scene and quickly hid in Mu Hongyan's arms, trembling in fear. Tang Zheng's eyes darkened and patted Mu Hongyin's body and said, "You two leave first. I will take care of things here. Thundercloud Beast, take them away." The Thundercloud Beast shook its body and turned into a small fellow, like a pet. It drilled into Nana's arms and cried out in a fawning manner, looking extremely cute. Nana was immediately attracted by the Thundercloud Beast's charmingly naive appearance. She stopped crying and hugged the Thundercloud Beast tightly. Mu Hongyan looked at Tang Zheng gratefully, knowing that he was protecting the mother and daughter. As for Long Xuanyuan's life and death, she didn't care. She believed that Tang Zheng could handle it well. "Nana, let's go." Mu Hongyan carried her daughter and soared into the sky like a dragon. She flew up from the ruins and flew far away. Long Xuanyuan watched them leave in confusion, then looked at Tang Zheng aggressively and shouted, "Why did you tell them to leave? What qualifications do you have to do that?" Tang Zheng immediately frowned, killing Bai Lu. He stared at Long Xuanyuan without blinking and said, "Long Xuanyuan, even now, you are still stubborn and do not know how to repent. If you continue to live like this, I don't know how much harm you will cause to the mother and daughter. I will never allow this to happen." "Tang Zheng, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? You're so protective of Mu Hongyan. Isn't it because you covet that woman, Mu Hongyan? Don't think I don't know about the dirty things you two have done." "Enough!" Suddenly, Tang Zheng roared. "Hongyan is my woman. I won't allow you to slander her like this. Originally, I had let you go for Nana's sake, but it's obvious that you don't cherish these things. Since that's the case, then go to hell." As soon as he finished speaking, Long Xuanyuan felt as if he was struck by lightning. That monstrous killing intent and anger made him unable to breathe. He finally knew fear. He didn't want to die. Then, he didn't even have the chance to beg for mercy, because he couldn't say a single word. A terrifying force pressed down on his neck, bit by bit, and he widened his eyes. Kacha! With a crisp sound, his neck broke, and he completely lost his breath. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.